Chapter 882. Something must have happened. Tong Shui Tao knew that there were two gatekeepers at the main door of the Zhou mansion. Miss said that she saw Steward Zhou enter from the main door, but she didn't see him come out from the main door. They should have walked to the back door. Steward Zhou brought Mrs. Ran and Qiuyue along, and anyone could tell at a glance that something was wrong with Qiuyue, but the guards at the back door still let them out. In that case, the guard at the back door must be Steward Zhou or Mrs. Ren's men. So she couldn't go to the back door. Tong Shui Tao walked straight towards the main door. When she was about to leave, she looked around and saw an 8 or 9-year-old child not far away. She immediately took out a fruit candy and waved at him. The child's eyes lit up and he ran over. "Do you need something from me? Go to the gatekeeper of the family in front and say a few words. This candy is yours." The child looked at the candy and swallowed. He quickly nodded. Tong Shui Tao whispered in his ear and handed him the candy. The child hurriedly stuffed the candy into his mouth and ran towards the entrance of the Zhou mansion. He knocked on the door a few times. When he saw the gatekeeper walk out impatiently, he said, "The waiter at the Five Blessings tea house asked me to come and tell you that your master was drunk in their tea house. Steward Zhou said that he wanted to go back to the residence to look for helpers, but he hasn't returned. If you have time, quickly bring your master back lest something happens." With that, the child licked the candy and ran away. The gatekeeper was still in a daze. When he came back to his senses, the child had disappeared. He frowned. The Five Blessings tea house? Steward Zhou had returned earlier and was in a hurry. He did not even reply when the gatekeeper asked. The gatekeeper frowned and said to the other guard, "Guard the door. I'll come back after taking a look." In any case, the tea house was not far away. If it was really Old Master, what if something happened? If he brought Old Master back, Old Master might even think highly of him. As he thought about it, the gatekeeper had already run off in a hurry. However, he didn't see Zhou Dafu at all in the tea house. The gatekeeper cursed in his heart. He must have been tricked by that child. Don't let him see him again, or he would definitely take off his pants and beat him up. However, before he left, he still asked the waiter. When the waiter heard that he was from the Zhou residence and that Old Master Zhou had not returned, he was shocked. How is that possible? Steward Zhou has already taken Old Master Zhou away. Old Master Zhou was indeed drunk and unconscious. It's been a long time. Could it be that he hasn't returned to the residence? The gatekeeper was stunned. There really was such a thing? However, he was the gatekeeper and did not see Steward Zhou return. They couldn't go through the back door, right? The back door was far away, so there was no reason not to use the main door. The gatekeeper had a bad feeling and asked a few more questions. The waiter said, "Steward Zhou couldn't help him up alone. I originally wanted to help him send Old Master Zhou back to the residence, but Steward Zhou said that there was no need. He went back to call for help, but in the end, he called two women and one of them was dressed as a manservant." It was also strange. The gatekeeper's eyes widened. What was Steward Zhou going to do? Oh no, something must have happened. The old master was drunk and was not brought back to the residence. He even brought two unfamiliar women with him. There was something fishy about this. The gatekeeper could not care less anymore and ran back to the Zhou mansion in a hurry. Chapter 883. Shock. As soon as he entered the door, the gatekeeper went to look for the butler in a hurry. The butler also felt that something was wrong. Could it be that Steward Zhou wanted to harm Old Master? He was also afraid and quickly went to report to Mrs. Zhou. Hearing the words, Mrs. Zhou sprang up from her chair. She was thinking more than the housekeeper. Butler Zhou was on good terms with Mrs. Ran and worked for concubine Gu, but now, Mrs. Su also thought of it and whispered into Mrs. Zhou's ear, "Madam, the waiter at the tea house said that he brought two women there. Could these two be Qiuyue and Mrs. Ren? It must be them." Mrs. Zhou gritted her teeth. The gatekeeper didn't see Steward Zhou go out from the front door, so he must have gone out from the back door. Good, very good. I didn't expect these two to still have the strength to jump around. Nanny Su, get someone to tie up the old woman who was guarding the back door today, and go to Snow Blowing Garden to see if Qiuyue brought Old Master to her place. Mrs. Su hurriedly did as she was told. Not long after, she came back panting with a look of panic on her face. "Madam, Qiuyue didn't come back, and Master didn't come back either. The old woman guarding the back door said that she would only let them out, but they didn't come back. They didn't come back? Mrs. Zhou was flabbergasted. She thought that Steward Zhou had taken advantage of the fact that Old Master was drunk to deliberately bring her back from the back door and send her to Qiuyue's bed. Mrs. Zhou realized that the matter had become serious. After walking around the house twice, she said in a low voice, "They haven't returned to the residence. Master is still drunk. Where are they taking Master and what are they doing? Let me think. I have to think about where they will go. There are the same number of carriages in the stable, so they shouldn't be too far away. Qiuyue doesn't have anywhere else to go in the prefectural city. She doesn't even have a place to stay. Where else can she go?" Nanny Su was also puzzled. Mrs. Zhou could not figure it out either. After a moment she could only order, "Go out and search. It's only been a while. They can't be far. Look around here. Go personally. Hurry." "Yes, ma'am." Nanny Su brought a group of servants out of the main courtyard. The butler was also at the door. He ordered a few people to go to the left. He nodded at Nanny Su and brought a few people to the right. As for Nanny Su, she strode forward. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, someone suddenly ran towards her in a hurry and bumped into her. "Oh, be careful!" Nanny Su cried out in pain. Just as she was about to scold someone, she felt something stuffed into her palm. She was stunned. Tong Shui Tao, who had bumped into her, had already lowered her head and apologized repeatedly in a low voice. I'm sorry. I had an urgent matter and offended you." Then, she ran away quickly. From the beginning to the end, Nanny Su did not have time to see her face clearly. She only knew that the other party was a woman and seemed to be quite old. Even after the stranger had run far away, she still stood rooted to the ground. Someone called out to her softly. Nanny Su suddenly came back to her senses, but she did not continue walking. She pinched the soft note in her palm and walked to the side before slowly unfolding it. With just one look, Nanny Su widened her eyes in shock and gasped in disbelief. "Nanny Su, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale all of a sudden?" An old woman beside her asked. However, Mrs. Su suddenly closed the note. After taking a deep breath, as if she did not believe it, she unfolded the note and read it again. Chapter 884. Catching Adultery. The next moment, Nanny Su made a prompt decision and said to the old woman beside her, "Call those two groups back. There's no need to search." "Why is that?" Nanny Su did not explain further. She only hurriedly said, "I'll go back to the residence first." Then, she returned to the Zhou mansion and did not dare to stop for a moment to look for Mrs. Zhou in the main courtyard. She handed the note to Mrs. Zhou. The latter took a look and was equally shocked. "Is what this says true?" "Well, no, once we take a look." Mrs. Zhou suddenly stood up. There was anger on her face, but there was also a faint joy. She took a deep breath and asked Nanny Su, "The butler is back?" "He's back." "All right, let's go. Bring him along." The butler was deeply trusted by Zhou Dafu. With him as a witness, it did not matter even if Old Master was drunk and unconscious. Actually, the more convenient and suitable candidate was Ah Feng. Unfortunately, Ah Feng and Ah Hai were not around today. That's right. Because they weren't around, Steward Zhou acted today. Nanny Su put a cloak on Mrs. Zhou and the group strode out. When they walked out of the door, they happened to meet the butler who had returned. Mrs. Zhou said, "Someone saw Mrs. Ran going to Auspicious Inn in a hurry. I don't know what she's up to. Come with me to take a look." "Yes, ma'am." The group hurried to the Auspicious Inn. Not far away, Tong Shui Tao, who had been observing them, ran away first. She took off her coat and ran straight to the inn. She sat in front of Yundong and said excitedly, "Miss, your guess is right." As expected, the person at the main gate went to report to Mrs. Zhou. Then, Nanny Su personally came out to look for her. "According to what you said, I stuffed the note into her hand. At this moment, Mrs. Zhou is bringing people over." Yundong nodded. If she wanted to tell Mrs. Zhou about this, she had to go through her trusted aide, Nanny Su. Unfortunately, it was not easy for Yundong to enter the Zhou mansion, so she took a detour to let them discover that Old Master Zhou and the others had disappeared. "Miss, what should we do now?" Tong Shui Tao asked softly. "What if Mrs. Ran is guarding the door and Mrs. Zhou and the others come over? What if Mrs. Ran informs them?" "It's fine. Mrs. Zhou is not stupid. Even if she was really stupid, there was still Gu Yundong. Tong Shui Tao was relieved. She held the teacup and took a sip of water. Then, Mrs. Zhou came in with Nanny Sue and the butler. Other than them, there were also a few people who came in. The waiter of the inn saw that they were coming aggressively and was about to ask when Nanny Sue stuffed silver into his hands. Then, she said that the servants in the residence had stolen the property of the residents and hid here. They were here to arrest them. The waiter looked at the silver and did not ask further. Mrs. Sue said to an unfamiliar old woman, "Go up and take a look. Is Mrs. Ren here?" The old woman nodded and came down after a while. She nodded at Mrs. Zhou. "She's indeed here." Mrs. Zhou said to the housekeeper, "I am right. Concubine Gu and Mrs. Ren have done something shameful. Master might have been harmed by them." The butler asked, "Then what does Madam plan to do?" Mrs. Zhou had a cold smile on her face. She raised her hand and pointed at the two of them, whispering a few words. Gu Yundong and Tong Shui Tao were sitting a little further away. Even though Tong Shui Tao had stretched her ears, she still could not hear clearly. Chapter 885. Gu Qiuyue is dead. However, they still saw the two people who were called out by Mrs. Zhou clearly. The two of them were dressed ordinary and not too conspicuous. They looked like guests who had come to stay. After hearing the instructions, the two of them lowered their heads and went to the second floor. Not long after, Mrs. Zhou and the others went up. Curious, Tong Shui Tao silently fell behind her. She only stuck her head out and saw Mrs. Ren's eyes wide open in horror. She was pressed down and gagged by the two people who had gone upstairs first. There was no way to inform others at all. Those two people might have some skills. When they attacked, they were clean and efficient, not giving Mrs. Ren a chance. Then, Mrs. Ren's face was filled with disbelief as she watched Mrs. Zhou push open the door with Nanny Sue and the butler. Tong Shui Tao still wanted to go in and take a closer look, but Mrs. Zhou probably knew that family scandals could not be publicized. She got someone to surround this area, not giving anyone a chance to watch the commotion. As soon as she entered, the door closed. Tong Shui Tao sighed regretfully. She went downstairs listlessly and sat opposite Gu Yundong. "Miss, aren't you curious?" "What's there to be curious about? I've already guessed. Besides, there's nothing to see here." They weren't a handsome man and a beautiful woman, and she didn't have a good figure. It hurt her eyes to look at her. Gu Yundong waited for a while before Mrs. Zhou came downstairs. Not only her, but also Zhou Dafu. Zhou Dafu was forcefully woken up by Mrs. Zhou. His hair was still wet from the tea. In the end, he did not drink much. After a while, he woke up. But at this moment, Zhou Dafu's face was ashen. Behind them were Steward Zhou and Mrs. Ren, who were being escorted. Steward Zhou still had footprints on his body, and Mrs. Ren had a palm print on her face. Both of them looked desperate. On the other hand, Gu Qiuyue tilted her head and seemed to be unconscious. Just like that, she was dragged out by the two old women. The group of people hurriedly left the auspicious inn without even looking at the lobby downstairs. As soon as they left, discussions broke out in the inn. "Isn't this the old master of the Zhou mansion? What happened? I heard that a maidservant stole their things and ran away. Mrs. Zhou came to arrest her." "Wow, that must be a treasure. Otherwise, why would old Master Zhou and Madame Zhou come personally?" Was old Master Zhou here?" "What do you think was stolen?" It was unknown what had been stolen, but that night, the Zhou mansion was robbed. It was said that the thief went to the Zhou mansion to search first. The next day, the news of old Master Zhou being cheated on by his concubines spread on the street. It was the thief who found out. When he went to the Zhou mansion, he happened to see Zhou Dafu dealing with concubine Gu. It was said that Steward Zhou and Mrs. Ren were both beaten 50 times each. However, halfway through the beating, the two of them couldn't hold on and died. Zhou Dafu wanted concubine Gu to pay with her life. These days, adultery was a serious crime, especially when concubine Gu was a concubine. Concubine Gu refused, and somehow, she bumped into a pillar, and then she was gone. When the news reached Gu Yundong, she was about to leave. Gu Dajiang had already finished his vacation and went to Tianhai Academy to study. Hence, both father and daughter knew that Gu Qiuyue was dead. Chapter 886. Smallpox. Gu Yundong was expressionless. and her heart was calm. To be honest, she was the one who caused this, but at the end of the day, Qiuyue was the one who courted death. Instead, she turned to look at Gu Dajiang. Gu Dajiang was really stunned for a moment. He was a little surprised and his emotions were indescribably complicated. Dead? Gu Dajiang didn't know what to feel. There was surprise, bitterness, and relief. As if sensing his daughter's gaze, he turned around and glanced at her. Why are you looking at me? She deserved it for doing such a thing. All right, go do your thing. I'm going to the academy. With that, Gu Dajiang got into the carriage. Shuirong shook the reins and the carriage gradually drove away. Gu Yundong secretly sighed. It was no longer important whether Gu Qiuyue had accidentally hit the pillar or died after hitting it. Anyway, this person would be gone from now on and would never appear in front of her again. She shook her head and prepared to go to the shop. However, after taking a few steps, a person rushed over from not far away. Gu Yundong was surprised. Dr. Xiong, why are you here? Didn't you say that you were going to spar with Dr. Wang from that clinic today? Sigh, don't mention it. Dr. Wang went to treat a child from a family. However, the other party had smallpox and couldn't be saved. Dr. Wang was in a bad mood, so I couldn't disturb him. You're quite understanding? Yes, you finally realized. Dr. Xiong waved his hand and walked towards the small courtyard. So I took this opportunity to come and take a look at your uncle's leg. If there's no problem, I'll break it today. Gu Yundong. Can you not be so scary? But since Dr. Xiong wanted to treat her uncle's leg, Gu Yundong could not go out again. She followed Dr. Xiong back to the courtyard door, but after taking a few steps, she suddenly stopped. Wait, smallpox? Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. Smallpox. That's right. Everyone knew how terrifying smallpox was these days. Almost everyone's expression changed when they heard it. However, this was an infectious disease. If they were not careful, everyone around them would suffer. Not to mention the common people. Even the members of the royal family could only wait for death if they contracted this disease. Over the years, the number of cases of smallpox had increased year by year, causing a large number of deaths every year. However, regardless of whether it was the imperial physicians or the civilian doctors, they had been helpless against this illness. Gu Yundong knew that many people were fighting against this infectious disease. She also knew that the human pox vaccination method had existed for a long time. Unfortunately, this method was not foolproof. Patients with mild illnesses would have scars, and those with serious illnesses would still die. It was not until someone overseas discovered the cowpox vaccination method that humans finally conquered smallpox. However, Gu Yundong did not know the details of either method, so she quickly walked forward and followed Dr. Xiong. She asked him, Dr. Xiong, you mentioned smallpox just now. Do you know the human pox vaccination method? As long as she knew the human pox vaccination method, it would be much easier to learn cowpox vaccination method. The human pox vaccination method? Dr. Xiong stopped in his tracks and lowered his eyes to think. He said, I've heard of it, but this method has to be conducted very carefully. If the doctor accidentally fails, he might not be able to continue practicing medicine in the future. Therefore, not many people use it, and it's not very common. Chapter 887. She's really a smart person. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. It seemed that someone already knew the vaccination method for human acne. She asked again, Do you know how to do it, Dr. Xiong? Dr. Xiong shook his head. No. Then he frowned. Why are you asking this? However, when he thought of the children in her family, he immediately became anxious. Is it your younger brother and sister? Of course not. Gu Yundong glanced at him angrily. They're fine. Didn't you mention smallpox just now? So I asked a few more questions. I see. Then how do you know the human pox vaccination method? Many doctors did not know. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Someone told me. If Dr. Xiong couldn't do it, then Song Dejiang definitely could. As an imperial physician, and an imperial physician who had been rehired by the current emperor, he would be too useless if he did not even know the human pox vaccination method. So Gu Yundong hurried back to her room to write a letter to Song Dejiang. She had thought about it. If Brother Xiao wanted to make a contribution, Wouldn't that be a huge contribution? She was really a smart girl. Yundong was elated until Dr. Xiong's shouting came from outside. What? You're not going to treat it today? Yundong put down her brush and paper and ran out. What's wrong? Dr. Xiong snorted. I'm treating your uncle's leg, but he's still unwilling. I've already said that it's fine, but he actually wants to choose an auspicious day. No, Bianhan had an awkward smile on his face as he explained. Dr. Xiong, I'm not picking a date. I just promised Yundong's aunt that I would treat my leg when she comes back. We've already agreed on this. If I go back on my word, her aunt will definitely be angry. That's why I said that you people are really clingy and wishy-washy. It's just treating an illness. Why do you need someone to accompany you? You're already so old. Your son is already so old. Shouldn't you be more straightforward? Dr. Xiong looked unhappy. I think you're just afraid of pain. When Bianhan heard the last sentence, he couldn't help but shrink his neck. Yundong saw it too and was a little surprised. Uncle. So he was afraid of pain? She touched her chin slightly. There were painkillers in her space. However, Dr. Xiong admitted that he was not an unreasonable person. Bianhan said that he would wait until Gu Dafeng returned. Otherwise, there would be no one by his side. At that time, he would be in so much pain that he would cry and die. The doctor snorted arrogantly and left. Fortunately, Qiuyue brought Gu Dafeng back the next day. The few of them were travel-worn. Gu Dafeng looked a little haggard, but she was in good spirits. She probably went to see Bien Mulan and vented her tears a couple of times. Her eyes were a little swollen. However, it could be seen that she was much more relaxed. As soon as Gu Dafeng entered, she went to look for Bien Han. I've already promised Mulan that when your leg recovers, we'll go back together to visit her, so you have to recover quickly. Don't worry, I'll take good care of myself. That's good. Let me tell you, Yongfu village is really a good place with beautiful mountains and clear water. The green brick tiled house in eldest brother's house is the only one in the village. Oh no, there are only two. How about we build a house in Yongfu village? We can be neighbors with eldest brother's family. Yundong saw that the two of them were talking enthusiastically. Gu Dafeng should have a lot to say. She quickly winked at Qiuyue when no one was paying attention. Chapter 888. She winked at him. Qiuyue saw that she had been winking at him, and his eyes lit up. Was she winking at him? He quickly followed her and the two of them walked into the central room to talk. Did everything go smoothly these few days? Yundong asked. Qiuyue looked around and saw Madame Yang standing not far away. He felt a little regretful that he couldn't hold her hand. He cleared his throat and nodded. It went well. You went back and asked Qin Wenzheng about the Tao family, right? What did he say? How involved is Tao Xing? Will he implicate you? This was what Yundong was most concerned about now. The Tao family had sinned, but she could not just watch them make a fool of themselves. It was too worrying. Speaking of this, Qiuyue became more serious. From what Qin Wenzheng said, this matter hasn't been completely investigated. The Tao family seems to be quite involved. Yundong's heart skipped a beat. Quite involved? That's serious? Her brows were tightly furrowed. In the end, Qiuyue couldn't help but reach out and smoothen her brows. It's fine. Although Qin Wenzheng didn't say anything explicitly, he promised me that he would keep me safe. Hearing this, Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. Since Qin Wenzheng said such things, he definitely knew what to do. However, they couldn't just rely on others. She felt uneasy that they didn't have a plan B. You don't have to worry too much. Qiuyue didn't want her to worry too much, so he changed the topic as if nothing had happened. Is everything all right at home these few days? I heard that Qiuyue is gone? After Qiuyue entered the city, he first transported the herbs to the shop. Zhou, who was in the shop now, quietly told him about this. Yundong nodded. She's gone. She did not say anything else. The family is doing well. My father has also returned to school. Speaking of which, the flowers that my mother grafted have been raised. I don't know what the flowers will look like in the future. I'll only know when spring comes next year. By the way, Dr. Xiong came over yesterday. He originally wanted to treat Uncle's leg yesterday, but Uncle did not agree. He said that he had to wait for my eldest aunt to come back. At the mention of Dr. Xiong, Qiuyue couldn't help but shake his head and ask, "Has he gone to other clinics to look for a doctor these few days?" "Why not? He had an appointment with Dr. Wang yesterday. Unfortunately, Dr. Wang was treating a child, but that child had smallpox and was gone. Dr. Xiong did not disturb him." Yundong sighed. "Speaking of which, smallpox is really worrying. The day before yesterday, I went to a farm outside the city and saw that there was smallpox on the cow. I was shocked. Fortunately, an aunt said that it was not smallpox, but cowpox. Because the milk tea shop needed a large amount of milk, Madame Dai and Ye Shuang bought a few cows near the Xuanhe prefecture and specially found a place to raise them. They even hired farmers who were already skilled to take care of these cows. Fortunately, the disease of cowpox is much lighter than smallpox. Although it can also infect people, they won't die after they get infected. By the way, I heard that those who have had cowpox don't have smallpox. Don't you think it's magical?" Qiuyue was originally quietly listening to her talk about trivial matters, but when he heard this, he suddenly paused. "You're saying that people who have cowpox won't have smallpox anymore?" Yundong nodded. "That's right. Those ants had it before. Even some of their own children had cowpox, but they were fine." Chapter 889. When will you get married? Qiuyue's pupils constricted slightly, and his expression became thoughtful. Yundong secretly looked at him and did not disturb him. After a while, he heard him say, "There's a way to prevent smallpox, but this method can't guarantee that nothing will go wrong. According to you, if the person with cowpox is fine, can't we change the smallpox to cowpox?" Yundong pursed his lips. "I knew it." He really thought of it at once. Yundong's eyes lit up and she said in surprise, "That's right. Why didn't I think of that? If it succeeds, will we not have to be afraid of this illness in the future?" Qiuyue's eyes were also shining. If that was the case, this was a huge matter that would benefit the country and the people. His hands trembled slightly, and he was a little tempted. For the first time, he had such a strong desire to do something. Qiuyue turned around and met Yundong's happy expression. He suddenly smiled and reached out to pinch her cheek. "You're reminding me on purpose, right? Actually, you could have told me directly. There's no need to beat around the bush." He sounded so certain that it would be too much for Yundong to deny it. However, she still said righteously, "How is that the same? If I had told you directly, how could it have been as fulfilling as what you found out yourself? Besides, I really don't know anything about medicine. I don't know the cowpox vaccination method and the human pox vaccination method either. I just thought of this possibility. It can only be said that the two of us have telepathy and thought of it. As for the outcome, I'm not sure." Qiuyue's expression changed slightly. "Is that so?" Yundong nodded affirmatively. "Yes, so how do we do it? Or do you want to do it yourself? I can't help much." This was true. She only knew about the cowpox vaccination method, but she did not know the details. She had also flipped through the spatial storage last night, but unfortunately, she could not find any books on this topic. "What are you going to do next?" The smile on Qiuyue's face deepened. "I'll go to the cow farm another day. It's not just the cow farm near the Xuanhe prefecture. I also want to know the other places. If no one has died from the cowpox, I can give it a try." "All right, if the cowpox vaccination method is indeed feasible, you will have made a great contribution. When the time comes, show this method to the emperor. Even if the Tao family commits a heinous crime, your contribution will not be erased. No one can touch you." Yundong felt that she had resolved the important matter in her heart. He felt relieved. Qiuyue looked at her with a burning gaze. He didn't say anything and reached out to hug her tightly. "Thank you." No one had ever done this for him. Yundong's eyes curved into crescents. From the corner of her eye, she noticed Madame Yang staring at them with wide eyes. Afraid that her voice would attract others, Yundong quickly took a small step back and said, I didn't do that for you. I did it for the people of the world." She was actually embarrassed to the point of stuttering. Why was she so cute? Qiuyue was tempted. "I know you're kind-hearted. When will you agree to marry me? Gu Yundong was speechless. What did this have to do with marriage? No matter how kind-hearted she was, she could not agree to marriage so easily, right? She glared at him and suddenly laughed. As long as you can convince my father, well, get married. Well, this was a little difficult. As Qiuyue was thinking, a raised voice suddenly came from outside. Chapter 890. Ingratiating to Eldest Aunt Gu. Brother, why are you like this? Where are your clothes? Aren't you afraid of freezing to death if you wear so little? How old are you? Do you know how to take care of yourself? This was Gu Daifeng's voice. From the sound of it, Gu Dajiang must have returned from school. As expected, his voice sounded. It's fine. It's not cold in the carriage. I ran for a while on the way back. I'm warm. Then you should put on your clothes. Hurry up. If you catch a cold later, you won't even need to go to the academy. Gu Dajiang had no choice but to put on his coat. In the house, Qiuyue's eyes flickered as he listened to the siblings' conversation. His future father-in-law seemed to listen to eldest aunt? That made sense. His father-in-law had been protected by eldest aunt since he was young. Although eldest aunt was only about 3 years older than his father-in-law, the eldest sister was like a mother. Madame Zhou did not treat him well. His father-in-law respected eldest aunt Gu from the bottom of his heart. Moreover, only eldest aunt Gu and uncle were older than Gu Dajiang now. In the following days, Gu Yundong realized that Qiuyue spent a lot of time with eldest aunt Gu. He often gave her a hand without batting an eyelid and was especially attentive to Bien Han's leg. At this moment, he had already walked up to Bien Han and said that he would get Dr. Xiong to come over tomorrow to treat his uncle's leg. Gu Dafeng was naturally excited. After waiting for so long, the day had finally come. The next morning, Qiuyue indeed carried Dr. Xiong's medicine box and led him to the small courtyard. It was still early, and the Gu family was still eating breakfast. Gu Dajiang had to go to the academy, so the others stayed behind to treat Bien Han's leg. Gu Yundong had previously asked Dr. Xiong if he had any painkillers. Unfortunately, Dr. Xiong said that this medicine had long been lost. Now, someone had concocted it, but the effect was not great. Gu Yundong looked at his uncle, who had been sweating since Dr. Xiong entered the house. She knew that he was extremely afraid of pain. Hence, she took out the painkillers from her space and mixed them in the water for Bien Han to drink half an hour in advance. There wasn't much. Hopefully it would work. After Dr. Xiong was ready, Gu Yundong asked Lu Hongxiu to stay in her room with Yunka and the others while she and Tong Shui Tao waited outside eldest aunt Gus' room. There was only eldest aunt Gu, Dr. Xiong, and Qiuyue, who had been pulled in by Dr. Xiong to help. Bien Han grabbed Gu Daifeng's hand tightly and did not even dare to look at his leg. Dr. Xiong squatted down to take a look before saying to Qiuyue, "You do it." Qiuyue. "It has to be you. I'm already so old, and my strength is limited. If I don't break it once and have to do it again, how much pain will he suffer? You have martial arts, are strong, and have studied medicine. No one is more suitable than you." When Gu Dafeng and Bien Han heard this, they hurriedly said to Qiuyue, "Qingyuan, come on, come on." When they heard that Dr. Xiong might not be able to break it in one go, the two of them quickly placed their hopes on Qiuyue. Qiuyue nodded. "All right, I'll do it." Bien Han quickly turned his head to the side. Dr. Xiong told Qiuyue what to pay attention to, then raised his head and said to Bien Han, "We're about to start. You don't have to be too." Crack! Before Dr. Xiong could finish speaking, Qiuyue had already made a clean move. Dr. Xiong was stunned. Gu Dafeng quickly turned to look at Bien Han. Chapter 891. She must be strong. Bien Han's face suddenly contorted. "Ah!" he cried out in pain. However, she quickly blinked in surprise. It didn't seem to hurt that much. Could it be that he had been giving himself too much pressure recently? Was it just that he was thinking too much and it actually didn't hurt that much? Gu Yundong, who was outside, was nervous when she heard the scream. She almost rushed in. Fortunately, the voices behind her were much lower and she did not hear anything else. She was relieved. Time passed bit by bit. Aunt Nio brought hot tea over, and Gu Yundong sat outside in the central room and drank 2 cups. Occasionally, she could hear Dr. Xiong's voice, Bien Han's cries of pain, and Gu Daifeng's comforting voice, but she did not hear Xiao Qingyuan's voice. It was not until noon that the door in front of her was opened again. Yundong immediately stood up and looked at Xiao Qingyuan, who was the first to walk out. She asked, "How did it go?" He's fine, he's fine." Dr. Xiong waved his hand. "Just take good care of him next. Don't move around. Eat something good. Make some bone soup for him to drink. All right, don't carve wooden statues for the time being. I'll come over in the next 2 days to change his splints and medicine." "Thank you, Dr. Xiong." Tong Shui Tao brought hot water to clean his hands. After wiping his hands and drinking a cup of hot tea, Dr. Xiong left. Only then did Gu Yundong go in to take a look at Bian Han. At this moment, he was lying on the bed with his legs splinted. His body was stiff and he could not move. He looked a little funny. Gu Dafeng praised him from the side. "You didn't scream loudly just now. I thought you were in so much pain that you couldn't scream anymore. It turns out that it didn't hurt much. In that case, Qingyuan is still the best. His technique was so unique that you didn't suffer much." Gu Yundong was speechless. It was fine. She had to be strong. Even though the credit was given to Xiao Qingyuan, they were a couple and it was all right. Bian Han was a little embarrassed, but deep down, he also felt that it was because Xiao Qingyuan took advantage of his distraction. It was just that after curing her leg, she felt a little sleepy, but it also hurt a little. She wanted to sleep, but she couldn't. It was uncomfortable. Gu Yundong did not disturb them and quietly left the room. She returned to her room. Madame Yang and Yunka were waiting for news. When they heard that he was fine, the two of them instantly cheered. The mother and daughter hugged each other tightly and laughed foolishly. Gu Yundong laughed, but the gloominess in her heart was more or less gone. After Xiao Qingyuan sent Dr. Xiong off, he left in a hurry. Gu Yundong knew that he had gone to the cow farm and prepared to study the vaccination of cowpox. As expected, Xiao Qingyuan asked all the farmers in the farm. Not everyone had cowpox, but those who had had it had indeed never been infected with smallpox. There was even a farmer who said that she had taken care of her daughter who had smallpox a few years ago. She was infected and had been healthy until now. When Xiao Qingyuan heard this, he became even more determined. Zhou, who had come with him, did not understand at first. However, after hearing young master's explanation, his eyes lit up. "Young master, do you mean that having cowpox can really prevent smallpox?" "I'm not sure yet. It's just a guess at the moment. I still have to experiment after I understand a few more families. It's just that how to test it was a problem. Even if he could try with animals in the early stages, what about later? Who would be the first to be infected with cowpox?" Chapter 892. Zhou's background. This candidate was definitely voluntary, but who would be willing to try such a matter that concerned their lives? Xiao Qingyuan had smallpox when he was young, so even if he wanted to do it himself, it was impossible. Zhou seemed to have seen through his dilemma and immediately recommended himself. "Young master, let me do it." Xiao Qingyuan looked at him. "What did you say?" "I said I'll do it." He had no hesitation at all. He smiled and said, "I believe in young master. Young master can even make his own medicine. Cowpox is definitely not a problem for you. Besides, didn't we ask just now? A person infected with cowpox won't be in danger. It doesn't matter if I'm infected." Xiao Qingyuan looked at him with a serious gaze. "Then you know that it's not enough to infected with cowpox. If I want to know the results, you have to be infected with smallpox to see if it's really useful. Cowpox is fine, but what about smallpox? You might lose your life." Zhou smiled nonchalantly. "It's not that serious. Even if it's smallpox, we can still treat it if we prepare in advance." Xiao Qingyuan frowned slightly. Clearly, he still didn't agree. He turned around and walked out of the cow farm. Then, he went to other houses with cows and continued to learn about the situation of people who had cowpox. Along the way, Xiao Qingyuan didn't say anything else. Zhou was afraid that he would be angry, so he didn't dare to speak. He just followed behind him, looking like he wanted to say something but hesitated. The two of them got into the carriage and entered the city again. Zhou sat on the shaft of the carriage and rode. As his back was facing Xiao Qingyuan, he finally took a deep breath and said, "Young master, actually, I'm also afraid of smallpox. I'm especially afraid." You don't know, but I used to have a younger brother who was just a few years younger than me. He just had smallpox when he was young and he died. His voice lowered by 2 degrees, but it also sounded like a laugh. Qiuyue couldn't see his expression, but he knew that he definitely wasn't feeling well. He continued, smallpox is really too scary. Not only did my younger brother die, but even my parents contracted it while taking care of him. They both died. At that time, I happened to be in my grandfather's place and escaped a calamity. When I received the news and returned, the villagers scolded me. Because not only my parents and younger brother, but even 2 neighbors were in trouble. Master, don't you think smallpox is scary? Smallpox took my family away. I couldn't stay in the village anymore. I couldn't go to my grandfather's family either. I was completely alone. If I hadn't met Brother Mao and the others, I might have died now. I didn't even think about living such a good life now. Qiuyue was silent. Young master, if you had such a method back then, my parents wouldn't have left. I just want to do something so that I would feel better. In the future, no one will be like me. Besides, didn't you say that doctors taste hundreds of herbs? Physicians with brilliant medical skills all eat poison themselves. I learned medicine from them. Why can't I grow cow acne? Qiuyue now knew why Zhou was interested in studying medicine. Moreover, between the guard and the shop assistant, he had chosen to be a shop assistant. Young master, just agree. Qiuyue was expressionless. We'll talk about this later. Let's make sure that everyone who has cowpox hasn't contracted smallpox again. Zhou thought that it was fine. He would have a way to convince young master. Chapter 893. Yundong felt her face hurt. In the next few days, Qiuyue went to several houses who raised cows. The results were the same. But it wasn't enough. Perhaps geographical location was also relevant. They had to understand not only the entire Xuanhe prefecture, but also other places. Qiuyue would only take action after confirming that the other prefectural cities were in the same situation. However, there was no time now because his pharmacy was finally going to open. Unlike Yundong's Gus, the pharmacy was not publicized with great fanfare. That was not right. Dr. Xiong was the only one who went to promote the pharmacy. Over the past few days, he had visited almost all the medical centers in the Xuanhe prefecture city. In Dr. Xiong's words, the doctors in this prefecture city are so knowledgeable and broad-minded. Especially those doctors in the big medical centers, they are still very willing to spar with me. They won't be angry even if they lose. They're just a little unconvinced. They'll look for me next time. As for me, I told us the address of our pharmacy and even asked them to introduce customers to our pharmacy later. Therefore, before this shop opened, the pharmacy was already famous. It's you who's famous, isn't it? Yundong did not have the strength to complain, but on the day of the opening, a few doctors really came. Yundong was speechless. Shouldn't these doctors be very busy? Dr. Xiong was also a very powerful person. How stupid was that medical center in the past to chase such a talent away? Just because he had a bad temper? Qiuyue set off a string of firecrackers. It was very lively, and everyone nearby knew that there was a pharmacy here. Dr. Xiong called for the few doctors to walk in, but they were unwilling. They waved their hands and looked at the shop. There was no telling if it was because they didn't like Dr. Xiong or something, but after a while, they started to pick on him. Your shop is too small. Old Xiong, you bragged to the sky back then. I've been waiting to see it. I'm a little disappointed. Me too. Sigh, as expected, I shouldn't have trusted you back then. Also, there's only one assistant in your shop. Can you handle it? There are 6 or 7 herb attendants in our medical center. Yundong felt her face hurt. Indeed, Dr. Xiong had friends who came to congratulate him. This was an illusion. These people must have been provoked by Dr. Xiong previously and were here to take revenge, right? Looking at the 2 guests who had just entered, they looked at each other and wondered if they should just turn around and leave. You don't have a lot of medicine cabinets, and you don't have many medicinal herbs, right? One of the doctors said as he reached out to open the medicine cabinet on the left and took a look. In the next moment, his eyes suddenly paused and he shouted, "Old Xiong!" The others were shocked. What's wrong, what's wrong? Why are there so many herbs? Old Xiong, Where did you buy the herbs in your pharmacy? The others came over to take a look. The doctor had already opened the medicine cabinet beside him. This is also full of boxes. Old Xiong, do you still have these herbs in the storeroom? Our medical center is very short of them. Hurry up and prepare some for me. Me too, us too. After the others took a look, they immediately fought to be the first to shout. One by one, they opened a few medicine cabinets and saw a few more precious and rare medicinal herbs. Their eyes immediately lit up like wolves seeing meat. They wished they could bring all the medicinal herbs in these medicine cabinets home. The customers in the pharmacy were all stunned. Were these doctors really the doctors from the medical centers they knew? Chapter 894. Something happened at home. Yundong felt. Her face hurt again. All right, these doctors were indeed Dr. Xiong's friends. Look at how they suppressed their desires first. It was simply a big move for publicity. Did you see the customers watching the commotion outside the pharmacy? They all squeezed in. On the other hand, Dr. Xiong had a proud expression on his face. He rushed forward and slapped the hands of the doctors away. What are you doing? Stop it. Don't you have any manners? How can you open the medicine cabinets in other people's shops casually? If our medicine shop is missing something, will you be responsible? The doctor who was the first to make a move was a little embarrassed. They were indeed here to make Dr. Xiong uncomfortable. Who asked Dr. Xiong to be so disrespectful in the past? However, they really liked medicinal herbs too. Now that they saw these medicinal herbs, all of them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. They did not care about anything else and only wanted to quickly obtain them. Old Xiong, this is our fault. I'm sorry. So do you have more medicinal herbs in your warehouse? Give me a sack. Me too. I want a sack too. Me too. Me too. Everyone looked at the last person who spoke. This person should be a guest who had just entered. He did not know the situation yet, but seeing that everyone was fighting to be the first to ask for something, he quickly echoed. Dr. Xiong's mouth twitched. What do you want? Are you guests of our shop? No, so these herbs are not for you. All right, move aside. I'm going to entertain the guests. Hey, old Xiong, don't say that. We're guests here today. Really? Dr. Xiong glanced at them from the corner of his eye. Sure. You're buying medicine, right? Bring the prescription over. If there's a prescription, I'll make the medicine. The few of them looked at each other. They were not sick or in pain. What prescription did they want? However, what they said just now had clearly offended Dr. Xiong. Seeing that he was unwilling to let the matter rest, they did not know what to do. Yundong watched and thought for a moment before whispering something to Qiuyue Tao. Qiuyue Tao immediately took out a brush and paper from behind the counter and silently handed it to one of the doctors. She winked at him. At first, the doctor did not understand. He thought that Qiuyue Tao had feelings for him and was a little unhappy. However, when he saw the brush and paper in his hand, he immediately understood and immediately wrote on the counter. After a while, he wrote 3 prescriptions and handed them to Dr. Xiong. Come, prepare the medicine. He was a doctor. Wasn't it easy to write a prescription? Seeing this, the others immediately came to a realization and followed suit. Dr. Xiong had seen Qiuyue Tao's actions just now. He also understood what Yundong meant. One still had to do business in a pharmacy. There was no reason to push money out. Therefore, although his face was dark, he still prepared the medicine quickly. On the first day of the opening, because of a few doctors looking for trouble, it became famous on the same day. Qiuyue saw that there was no problem with the pharmacy, so he said to Yundong, "Tomorrow, I want to go to the cow farms in Qingan Prefecture to take a look." Yundong knew that he was focused on the vaccination of cowpox, so she nodded and said, "Be careful." "Don't worry." However, the next morning, before Qiuyue went out, a horse suddenly galloped over and stopped at the door of the small courtyard not long after. Someone got off the horse and anxiously knocked on the door. The moment he saw Yundong, he panted and said, "Miss, something happened at home." Chapter 895. Someone wants to kill Yunshu. The person who came was an acquaintance called Zhou. He was the escort that Qiuyue had invited to teach a Mao and the other 3 martial arts. His frown was very serious and Yundong's heart skipped a beat. What happened? Zhou looked around. Qiuyue understood and quickly got Lu Sheng to settle the horse first. Then, he led him through the door, blocking the neighbors from peeking out when they heard the commotion. After entering, the three of them went straight to the central room. Zhou didn't see Gu Dajiang. He should have gone to the academy, but Gu Dafeng and the others were there. Hence he lowered his voice and whispered, "Someone wants to kill young Master Yunshu." "What did you say?" Gu Yundong suddenly looked up. Her expression changed drastically as she asked anxiously, "How is Yunshu now?" "He's fine. It's just that." Zhou paused with a hint of pity. "It's just that Tongan was stabbed in the abdomen while protecting Yunshu. His head was also smashed by a wooden stick. I was called over by Mr. Qin to inform you. Before I came, he was still unconscious. I don't know if Tongan is out of danger." He had set off yesterday evening. Although he had sped up, the city gate was still closed when he arrived at the prefectural city. Therefore, he waited until the city gate opened this morning before coming in. Then, he went straight to the small courtyard. Gu Yundong's fingers trembled slightly. Her voice was cold and her eyes were fierce. "Who did this?" "It's the teacher who taught at Dongyi Academy previously." Gu Yundong and Qiuyue were stunned. The master of Dongyi Academy? When the two of them heard that someone wanted to kill Yunshu, and that Zhou was called over by Qin Wenzheng, their first reaction was that the Tao family did it. How was the master of Dongyi Academy involved in this? Zhou said, "Master Wei has been taken away by the government office and imprisoned. The exact cause will only be known after the county master interrogates him." Master Qin guessed that Master Wei was indignant after being chased away by Dongyi Academy. He must have deliberately taken revenge on young Master Yunshu. Gu Yundong nodded randomly. No matter the reason, the most important thing now was whether Tongan was safe or not. She looked up and said to Xianxia, "I'll go back now. Go to the Huimin Medical Center and invite Dr. He to Fengkai County. Tong An's head is injured, and Dr. He happens to be good at this." "Okay." Only then did Gu Yundong walk out of the central room. She said to Gu Dafeng, who was looking over worriedly, "Eldest aunt, there's a problem with the family's business. Brother Xiao and I have to go back. Help me take care of my mother and the rest. When my father comes back, just tell him." "Is everything all right?" Gu Dafeng asked worriedly. Gu Yundong shook her head. "It's fine. I can handle it." It was better not to let others know about this for the time being. The exact situation was still unclear, so it was best to prevent them from worrying. Zhou must have received instructions from Qin Wenzheng to tell the two of them alone. With that, Gu Yundong left with Tong Shui Tao. Qiuyue let Zhou rest for a while and immediately led the carriage straight to Huimin Medical Center. Gu Yundong and Tong Shui Tao went straight to Fengkai County. They left early, but it was already afternoon when they arrived at Fengkai County. Due to the proximity, Gu Yundong went straight to the county town's Gus and found Zhuangzi. Zhuangzi definitely knew about such a serious matter. As expected, when she arrived at the shop, Zhuangzi hurriedly came out to welcome her. "Boss, you're back." Chapter 896. Is this their relationship? Gu Yundong asked. "How is Tongan now? Is he in danger? Where is he now?" "Boss, don't be anxious. The doctor said that Tong An's life is saved." Seeing that she was in a hurry and her voice was hoarse when she spoke, Zhuangzi quickly poured them 2 glasses of water. When Gu Yundong heard that his life was saved, she heaved a sigh of relief and drank a large glass of water. Seeing that she was breathing evenly, Zhuangzi continued, "But Tongan has been unconscious and hasn't woken up." Gu Yundong frowned. Tong Shui Tao was also flustered. Tongan was her biological uncle. After hearing that he was injured, she had been on tenterhooks all the way and almost fell off her horse a few times. Zhuangzi said, "The doctor said that he injured his head. There have been such cases in the past, but we don't know how long Tongan will be unconscious for. It's possible for him to be unconscious for a day or two, or even a month or two. The doctors in the county city don't have much experience in this aspect, so they don't dare to do anything. However, Master Qin said that he has already sent someone to inform the boss. The boss will definitely bring the doctors from the prefectural city over. He asked us to wait. Therefore, Tongan has already been brought back to Yongfu village." Gu Yundong nodded. It seemed that she could only wait for elder brother Xiao to bring Dr. He over. What about that Master Wei who committed the crime? Did he explain why he wanted to harm Yunshu? Zhuangzi did not know about this. Mr. Qin is keeping an eye on the government office. Although he had also asked his friends in the county city, he did not find out anything for the time being. I'll go look for Qin Wenjing first. All right. Zhuangzi quickly stopped her. Master Qin should be in Yongfu village now. Gu Yundong nodded and went out. She mounted her horse and immediately headed for Yongfu village. When she arrived at the entrance of the Gu residence, she saw Father Tong hurriedly welcome her. Miss, you're back. As he spoke, he looked behind her. Gu Yundong knew what he was looking at and explained. The doctor is at the back. Brother Xiao will bring him over later. Father Tong heaved a sigh of relief and quickly led the horse to the backyard. The atmosphere in the Gu residence was a little gloomy. Perhaps because they heard the commotion outside, Yunshu and Yuanji quickly ran out. Big sister. The moment the little guy saw her, the emotions he had been holding back collapsed. He rushed over and hugged her waist tightly. Gu Yundong squatted down and touched his head. It's all right, it's all right. Eldest sister is back. Yunshu's eyes were slightly red and tears were rolling in them. Sister, Tongan was injured because he saved me. I know. Eldest sister has already called Dr. He over. He will save Tongan, don't worry. She hugged the little guy and knew that he must be feeling extremely guilty. She could not help but sigh slightly and get up to lead him inside. Qin Wenzheng was also there. When he saw her return, he nodded slightly. Gu Yundong went to see Tongan first. Tongan was lying quietly on the bed. He had already changed into clean clothes, and his forehead was still wrapped in gauze. His face was pale and bloodless. Other than elderly Lady Tong, Madame Cui, who was wiping her tears, there was also Shen Sitian in the house. To her surprise, Shen Sitian's tears did not stop. Her hand was still holding Tong Anna's hand tightly. Gu Yundong was shocked. Although it was inappropriate, Gu Yundong still felt that she was hallucinating when she saw this scene. When did the two of them have such a relationship? Chapter 897. He's here for me. Gu Yundong shook her head, suppressed the doubts in her heart, and walked out again. Qin Wenjing stood at the door. Seeing her come out, he walked to the side. When she caught up, he said, I'm sorry, this happened because of me. Gu Yundong was stunned. What do you mean? Is there a result from the county office? Qin Wenjing nodded. Then Master Wei was originally targeting me. Master Wei was originally a teacher of Dongyi Academy and had always thought highly of himself. Coupled with his kinship with the dean, he could be considered to have a very high status in the academy. Otherwise, why would he act so wantonly when the director was in the capital and not in Fengkai County? However, he did not expect that the consequences of his tyranny would actually ruin his future. The first time Gu Yundong saw him, he had pressured Madame Gu at the entrance of Qin Wenzheng School and almost caused her to fall and be injured. Although Master Wei was at a disadvantage in the end, Qin Wenjing doted on his wife. How could he really forgive someone who almost hurt his wife? Qin Wenjing would remember this debt. At this point, Qin Wenjing only wanted to find an opportunity to teach him a lesson. He did not really want him to pay any price. However, Master Wei courted death himself. Later on, he brought the students of Dongyi Academy and took advantage of Qin Wenzheng's absence to challenge his students. Moreover, he had lost in public and became the laughingstock of the entire county. The acting director could not take it anymore and suspended his position as a teacher. This matter would wait until the director returned to Fengkai County. At that time, Master Wei had wanted to plead with the dean, but he did not expect the dean to know Qin Wenzheng's identity. Qin Wenjing naturally would not show mercy to someone who had caused trouble for his wife and students several times. In addition, the dean was also dissatisfied with Master Wei's actions, so he completely chased him out of Dongyi Academy. He even issued an expulsion document and punished Master Wei in public in front of all the students in the academy. Master Wei had lost all face. He left the academy dejectedly. After returning home, he was even criticized by his neighbors. He was famous in the county, so it was impossible for him to teach elsewhere. Even his family was implicated by him and was kept a respectful distance from. Because of this, Master Wei was extremely disliked at home. His wife, who used to be gentle and caring in front of him, seemed to have become a different person. Not only did she despise him all day, but she also slept in separate rooms with him. His family was also experiencing more and more difficulties. He no longer had any income as a teacher and could only eat surplus food. The food he ate also changed from fine food to coarse food. In the end, he could only eat until he was half full. Day after day, the conflict in the family deepened. Master Wei's temperament became more and more gloomy, and he slowly began to drink. Last time, he stole money and was discovered by his wife. Then he hit his wife. His wife exploded and went back to find her brother. In turn, her brother beat up Master Wei and almost beat him to death. He lay in bed for half a month to recover. All right. He did not dare to touch his wife, but he had to vent the anger in his heart. Hence, he targeted Qin Wenjing. Master Wei felt that his current situation was all because of Qin Wenjing. Yesterday, after drinking a little, he began to gather his courage. He picked up a pair of sharp scissors and left. Chapter 898. No such reason. Master Wei went to the entrance of Qin Wenzheng school because he wanted to rush up and cut him when he came out. However, he waited for 2 hours, and Qin Wenjing did not come out. He wanted to go in, but there was a gatekeeper guarding outside, so he never found an opportunity. At this moment, the school ended and Yunshu and Yuanji came out. Coincidentally, Father Tong was not feeling well yesterday, so the person who picked them up was Tong, and Yunshu and Yuanji were the last to come out. Because Niu Dan had also come to the county city to study, they wanted to go back together every day. The three of them were good friends and could not wait to travel together. It was just that Dongyi Academy ended later, so Yunshu and the other student were not in a hurry to set off. They would wait for the other students in the academy to leave before going to Dongyi Academy to pick Niu Dan up. When the two of them ran to the carriage, they happened to mention the Dongyi Academy. Master Wei, who was standing not far away, immediately turned his attention to them. He looked at Yunshu and thought of how the kid had embarrassed him back then. He also thought of how the kid's sister, Yundong, had embarrassed him. He felt that these two people had also contributed greatly to everything he had encountered today. At that moment, hatred surged and he was drunk. Without thinking, he rushed towards Yunshu. Tongan had just carried Yuanji into the carriage when he turned around and saw Master Wei stabbing at Yunshu with a pair of scissors. His expression changed drastically on the spot. Without thinking, he picked Yunshu up and dodged the pair of scissors. However, Master Wei could not stop himself. The scissors pierced into Tong An's body due to inertia. Tongan cried out in pain. He still remembered to put Yunshu down carefully at a time like this. The moment Master Wei saw the blood, he suddenly woke up. Especially since the person he stabbed was actually a stranger. This made him subconsciously look at Yunshu. However, this glance made Tongan think that Master Wei was still unwilling to give up and planned to harm Yunshu again. Therefore, when Master Wei was about to escape, he grabbed his hand and asked Yunshu to hurry and call for help. Master Wei panicked, especially when he saw that someone was already running over. Without thinking, he picked up a wooden stick from the ground and slapped him hard on the head. In a moment of desperation, he hit Tongan hard and ruthlessly. Tongan only saw a blur before her eyes, and he fell straight back. Fortunately, at this moment, the gatekeeper of the Qin family ran over from afar. The people on the street who heard the commotion also ran over. Master Wei was arrested, but Tongan was unconscious. He was sent to the nearest medical center. The doctor stopped the bleeding and bandaged his wound, but there was nothing he could do about the wound on his head. Yunshu quickly went to Xiao Qingyuan's pharmacy to invite the old doctor over, but after the old doctor saw it, he gave the same conclusion. Head injuries had always been complicated. Physicians who were not proficient in this aspect did not dare to inject rashly. Yunshu blamed himself very much. He saw clearly that Master Wei was coming for him. Tongan was injured to save him, and he didn't wake up. For the entire night, he did not dare to sleep. He was afraid that Tongan would leave without realizing it. His small body was tense all the way until Yundong returned. Qin Wenzheng's voice was deep. He originally came for me. You don't have to blame yourself too much. He touched Yunshu's little head. This matter was completely caused by Master Wei venting his anger. What had Yunshu done? He had only retaliated when Master Wei made things difficult for him. Could it be that Master Wei was the only one who could bully him and he was not allowed to refute? There was no such logic. Chapter 899. Dr. He is here. Yundong also said, Master Wei is at fault in this matter. What we have to do now is to do our best to treat Tong En and punish the murderer according to law to avenge Tong En. Yunshu pouted slightly and nodded. I understand, big sister. They didn't know when Tong Ping had come over. Ever since Tong En was injured yesterday, the only thing he could do as a big brother was to help him do his job well. Eldest Miss was not around, and young master was still young. Tong En had always been in charge of the workshop. Tong Ping was worried that Tong An's injury would affect the workshop and make everyone panic. Therefore, although he was also worried about Tong An's health, he still went to the workshop early in the morning to stabilize the situation. At this moment, he looked a little haggard. Yundong nodded at him. Thank you for your hard work. I'm fine. This is what I should do in the first place. Tong Ping often ran around outside now, so he was already much more reliable. I won't let the workshop be in chaos. Miss, don't worry. When Tong En wakes up, he can also be at ease. After a pause, he looked at Yunshu. Young master, on the other hand, you didn't sleep last night. If this continues, I'm afraid you won't be able to take it. Yundong lowered her head. The child shook his head quickly. I'm not sleepy at all. You still have to sleep. Yundong carried him up and walked towards the room. Children won't grow tall if they don't sleep. But Tong En... Yundong placed him on the bed and took off his shoes and jacket. She covered him with the blanket and patted him gently. Big sister is here. Big sis is here. These words seemed to have magic to Yunshu. In the past, when they were escaping from the famine, Yundong had always said that eldest sister was around. With eldest sister around, he could finally relax. With eldest sister around, he finally did not have to work hard to support everything with his small shoulders and endure it. The child's tears fell. He wiped them away with the back of his hand and hummed softly with a nasal voice. Then, he pulled the blanket up and closed his eyes after covering most of his face. After all, he had not slept for the entire night. The fatigue in his body quickly surged. Yundong patted the blanket gently and he fell asleep in no time. Only then did Yundong gently pull the blanket down, revealing a slightly red face. After a long time, she gently left the room. Yuanji, who was also worried, stood outside the door. Is Yunshu asleep? Yes, he's asleep. You didn't rest well either, right? Go and sleep. Yuanji nodded heavily before quietly entering the house. He carefully lifted the blanket and crawled into bed. The two children slept side by side and felt the entire room become warm. Yundong gently closed the door. When she turned around, her expression darkened. Wenzheng was still standing at his original spot, waiting for her. When he saw her coming over, he said, I'll keep an eye on the government office. Don't worry, I won't let him have an easy time. Yeah. Only then did Wenzheng leave. With Yundong around, there was no need to worry too much. When it was almost evening, Qiuyue finally returned. Dr. He came back with him. Dr. He seemed to be in a bad state. When he arrived at the Gu residence, his legs were weak. Yundong was surprised. Didn't you take a carriage? Dr. He turned around and glared at Qiuyue, almost falling forward. Qiuyue reached out to support him expressionlessly and pushed him forward. Chapter 900. There's nothing wrong with that. Where is Tong En? Qiuyue asked. Yundong pointed ahead. In his own room. Qiuyue was about to lead Dr. He over when Yundong hurriedly stopped him. Wait, how can Dr. He treat someone under such circumstances? His hands are trembling. Don't make a mistake and ruin things. The few people including Madame Cui who happened to hear the commotion outside heard this and did not come forward. Dr. He panted and said, Yundong is the most sensible. Look at the person you found. Really, he almost took my life. Dr. He, you rode a horse too? Tong Ping brought a chair over for Dr. He and poured water for him. When he recovered, he said, I was originally in the carriage, but Qiuyue, this kid, was almost at the entrance of the county city. He suddenly despised the speed of the carriage and pulled me onto the horse's back. Then he rushed over. Yundong looked at Qiuyue suspiciously. The latter had a good reason. Dr. He, you're not used to sitting in a carriage. The journey is too slow. If we don't ride into the city at the last moment, the city gate will be closed. We can only reach Yongfu village tomorrow. There was nothing wrong with that. Yundong coughed lightly. Dr. He, you must be tired. Dr. He snorted coldly. Fortunately, he had a gentle personality. Although he was angry, he knew that saving people was more important. He let it go after complaining a little. He was already old, so he would not argue with this kid. Dr. He waved his hand magnanimously. All right, bring me to the patient first. Are you done resting? More or less. Actually, Qiuyue's speed was already much slower on the way into the village. Dr. He was still supported by Qiuyue. Tong Ping immediately went forward to support his other side, making him look like a seriously ill patient. Yundong followed them into the room and sighed slightly when she saw Xianxia. She was still here. It was only when Madame Cui told her that the doctor was here that she stood up, wiped her face and moved to the side. Dr. He removed the gauze on Tong An's head and took his pulse. He nodded slightly. How is it? Xianxia asked anxiously. Doctor He said, well, although it's a little serious, it can be treated. The people in the room immediately looked happy. It's good that it can be treated. That's great. Doctor He said, I'll get ready. I'll give him acupuncture tomorrow. Tomorrow? Can't we do it today? Madame Cui asked softly. She was very worried. She hoped that her son would wake up as soon as possible. Otherwise, she would be worried and unable to eat or sleep well. Dr. He knew that they were anxious, but he pointed at the sky outside. It's already so late. I can't even see clearly. How can it be easy to perform acupuncture? As he spoke, he glanced at Qiuyue meaningfully. See, even if you rush me into the city today, it's still useless. Qiuyue pretended not to see his gaze. When the others heard Dr. He's explanation, although they were a little disappointed, they were still very happy to know that Tongan was fine. Xianxia also heaved a sigh of relief. After all, she had not slept for a day and night. Coupled with the fact that her body had been tense, she could not take it anymore and her body swayed. Yundong quickly took a step forward and held her back. You should rest too. Thank you. Xianxia wiped her face and finally revealed a smile. If you hadn't brought Dr. He over, Tongan would probably... Yundong looked at her and a thought suddenly flashed across her mind. Chapter 901. Concern. This thought ran through Yundong's mind for a moment before she temporarily suppressed it. There was no hurry. She would treat Tongan first and ask him when he woke up. With his contributions this time, it was not impossible to remove his servant status. Dr. He temporarily settled down in the Gu residence. Madame Cui tidied up the guest room for him and came out. Dr. He had been on the road for the entire day and rested after dinner. The next morning, under everyone's eager anticipation, he carried the first aid kit and focused on performing acupuncture for Tong En. Apart from Tong Ping, who was his assistant, everyone else was waiting outside. Yunshu and Yunji squatted on the ground, hugging Big Black and staring at the door. Yundong watched from behind. She knew that the two children were anxious, so she did not persuade them. After half a day, there was a slight sound in the house. When Tong Ping opened the door, Dr. He walked out while wiping his sweat. Doctor, how is Tong En? Madame Cui was the first to go up and ask. Doctor He said, he's fine. If nothing goes wrong, he'll wake up tonight. Joy instantly flashed across everyone's faces. Yunshu and Yunji heaved a long sigh of relief and completely smiled. Since Tong En was fine, the others no longer stayed in the room. Yundong sent the two children back to their rooms to read while she went to the workshop in the village. She had come back in a hurry yesterday and was worried about Yunshu and Tong En, so she did not go out. Now, Tong En was in charge of the workshop. Since he was unconscious, she naturally had to go and take a look. There were more than 100 workers in the workshop now. Ever since they recruited 50 long-term workers last time, the workshop had become much livelier. In particular, many people came from other villages that were too far and it was inconvenient to go back. The row of dormitories behind the workshop was used. When Yundong went over, many people immediately surrounded her and asked about Tong An's situation with concern. Boss, is Steward Tong all right? Boss, have you caught the perpetrator? Boss, if there's anything you need our help with, just tell us. Most of the people who asked questions were the long-term workers from before. They were more familiar with her and dared to speak in front of her. Although the people who came later were also concerned, they still stood a distance away. Yundong answered the questions one by one. She watched as everyone in the workshop worked in an orderly manner. Even though Tongan was not around, no one seemed to be slacking off. It seemed that Tongan had indeed managed it very well. After walking past the jam area, Yundong went to the dried fruits area. Finally, she arrived at the sugar production room. Since the sugarcane matured this year, the production of white sugar was naturally on the agenda. This time, she did not do it herself, nor did she leave the last step in the Gu family's backyard. In the beginning, Yundong had estimated that the production of white sugar could be monopolized for 2 to 3 years. After that, it would definitely become more and more common. Now that the imperial court was controlling it, no one dared to brazenly sell white sugar. However, Wenzheng had told her that there were already people in the capital who had secretly made them. It was just that under the emperor's nose, these people would only use them for themselves and would not dare to sell them. The emperor would turn a blind eye to such small actions. Although Yundong did not expect to always monopolize the technology, the current production in this area was still in the hands of people she trusted. In the sugar area, the Zheng couple and the group of people who had worked with her for a short time were all busy. Chapter 902. Talk to you, of course. These people also had the highest salary. Yundong trusted the Zheng couple the most, so they were in charge of this. Although Madame Dong had a soft personality, Zheng had some talent in management. He would be tough or soft when he needed to be. Therefore, the Zheng couple's monthly salary was already 4 taels of silver. It was said that after the new year, the couple planned to send Zheng Lu to a private school. Now, Yunshu, Yuanji, Niu Dan, and the Zheng family were all studying in school. Zhang Yu had been learning embroidery from Xianxia recently. Hence, Zheng Lu was often the only one at home. In the past, the Zheng family was poor and lived far away. The 3 children of the Zheng family were sensible enough to help the family work and rarely went out to play with the other children. As a result, Zheng Lu had almost no friends in the village who were on good terms with him. Now he could go out to play. However, as he played, he came back covered in mud and dirty. He went up the mountains and down the river like a wild monkey. Every time Madame Dong looked at him and then at her eldest son, who had returned from the private school, she felt very vexed. She thought that he should indeed study. Apart from this, the Zheng family also planned to rebuild their house. Yundong was naturally happy for them. When they first came to Yongfu village, the Zheng family had shown them kindness. Now, she had repaid them. The others in the village were extremely envious. Some of them regretted even more. If only Yundong had stayed in their house back then, perhaps they would have been the ones to build a new house today. There were even people who laughed at Madame Fong and her daughter. Look, they didn't see such a good opportunity back then and even chased them out. In the end, the Zheng family rose step by step, but Madame Fong and her daughter cut ties with the village chief's family. Yundong had heard these rumors occasionally. This was exactly what she wanted. She wanted everyone to understand that if they followed her, they would have food to eat, a new house to live in, and a good life. If they insisted on finding trouble with her, they would have to consider the consequences. After looking at the sugar area, Yundong went to the dormitories at the back. It seemed that 1/3 of the dormitories had already been occupied. It looked a little lively. It was already noon by the time she finished checking the workshop. Tongan woke up much earlier than Dr. He had said. He woke up not long after noon. Dr. He examined him and nodded to confirm that he was fine. As long as you recuperate well, there won't be a big problem. Dr. He left the medicine and instructed them to take note of things. The next day, he returned to the prefectural city. It was Xiao Qingyuan who sent him back. He also went to the prefectural city to report to Gu Dajiang and the others. Then, he continued to study the problem of cowpox. Yundong stayed behind. After Tongan recuperated for 2 days and became a little more energetic, she went to find him. Tongan was lying on the bed and reading a book. Now that he could read, he had nothing to do while he was recuperating, so he read to pass the time. When he saw Yundong enter, he quickly straightened his body. "Miss, why are you here?" "Don't move. I just want to talk to you." Tongan didn't understand. "Miss, if there's anything you need, just tell me." Yundong pulled a stool and sat down beside him. "It's about this matter. I want to thank you. It's all thanks to you a few days ago. If you hadn't saved Yunshu, That pair of scissors would have pierced into him. He might not even have been able to keep his life. Chapter 903. Tong An's thoughts. Tongan was terrified and hurriedly said, "Miss, what are you saying? I'm a servant of the Gu family. It's my duty to protect my master. Not to mention that I'm fine now. Even if I really die, it's my fate. It's not worth Miss thanking me. Moreover, I've been recuperating these few days. Young master often visit me and bought a lot of things. I'm already very touched." Tong An's words were not fake at all. He really thought so. He had been a servant since he was young and had served the young master in the previous master's house. They had never treated servants as humans. The servants' lives had never been up to them. When the Tong family arrived at the Gu family, they were really nervous at first. However, the young masters and mistresses of the Gu family treated them extremely well and had never beaten or scolded them. They did not mind that he was clumsy with his words and let him read and become the manager of the workshop. Tongan had always felt that he would never be able to repay Miss for her trust. He wished he could dig out his heart and give it all to the Gu family. This time, he was even willing to block the scissors for his young master. Thinking that he would finally be useful, he did not regret it at all. In fact, he was happy to be able to save his young master. Gu Yundong believed him, but, "No matter what, you've made a great contribution. You have to be rewarded." Gu Yundong said, "You can tell me directly what reward you want." "I don't need it." Tongan blurted out without even thinking. "Young Miss and young master treat us well and value us so much. It's already the best reward for us." Gu Yundong was speechless. She had a headache. She used to think that Tongan was quite honest, but she didn't expect him to be so honest. She paused and reminded him, "Actually, you can think about it again. For example, if you plan to get married and have children, I can help you. Or if you're missing something, you can mention it." "No need. I don't plan to get married again in this life. I don't lack anything. The Gu family has everything and I have such a high monthly salary. I can buy anything I want." Gu Yundong frowned. Judging from his resolute tone, did he really not intend to get married again? Could it be that he had no feelings for Xianxia? Gu Yundong's head hurt even more. She looked at Tongan carefully for a moment. Indeed, she did not see any embarrassment on his face. She sighed silently in her heart. "Then, save it first. When you think of it, we'll settle it together." Gu Yundong stood up. "Rest well first. I'm leaving." She went out the door, puzzled. What should she do if her brain wasn't enough? What was going on with these two? She wondered if she should ask Xianxia for her opinion, but in the following days, Xianxia did not take a step closer to Tong An's room. It was as if on that day when Tongan was unconscious, the scene of her holding Tong An's hand and crying was just Gu Yundong's imagination. What were these two doing? Gu Yundong went straight to Xianxia and asked her what had happened that day. Xianxia shook her head and said, "I was just shocked that day." Gu Yundong would be a fool to believe her. "Tell me honestly, have you taken a fancy to Tongan? Did you tell him?" "Yundong, I don't plan to get married again in this life. You know what I've experienced in the past, and I can't tell anyone about it. I just want to build a house next to this place after I save enough money. I might adopt a child in the future and that will be all for the rest of my life." Chapter 904. Everyone is back. Gu Yundong did not agree with her negative thoughts, but she could not even figure out her own feelings, let alone others giving her suggestions. Annoying. Forget it. Anyway, there's no hurry. Perhaps you'll change your mind in the future. Gu Yundong guessed that she might not have gotten over Gu Gang's matter, so she could not force her. "Anyway, I'm always here when you need me." "Yes, thank you." Xianxia smiled very easily. "It's my greatest blessing to have you as my friend." Gu Yundong did not interfere in this matter anymore. She would let nature take its course. She was very busy for the next few days. Tongan was recuperating, Qiuyue was looking for a way to treat smallpox, and Gu Yundong had to manage the workshop. She also took the time to buy dozens of acres of orchard. The Shi couple was very experienced in cultivating fruit forests, but they were indeed lacking in management. Gu Yundong began to place Zhou in an important position. Zhou was quite bold. He helped Gu Yundong recruit some farmers to take care of the fruit forest. In addition, his son was becoming more and more reliable. Now, his life was getting better and better. Of the 4 hooligans who had come to Gu Yundong's house to steal money, other than Hu Liang who had broken his leg and stayed at home all day crying and tormenting his parents, all were already working for Gu Yundong. This made Hu Liang's mother, Qiuyue, feel unbalanced. She often badmouthed Gu Yundong in the village. Unfortunately, more than half of the people in Yongfu village were working in Gu Yundong's workshop or orchard. Naturally, they would not listen to her. Even if they did not work for the Gu family, they hoped that they would be chosen one day. How could they help Qiuyue frame the Gu family? On the contrary, the Hu family became even more unpopular in the village. The days passed by in a flash. During this period, the workshop sent goods to the prefectural city a few more times and even brought Gu Dajiang's letter. He only asked her about her daily life and didn't know about Yunshu. Master Weiss' case had already ended. The news Qin Wenzheng gave her said that he had been sentenced to a place thousands of kilometers away. She busied herself until the end of the month and it was finally Gu Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony. She had even forgotten about this day. Unexpectedly, one day, her parents, sister, eldest aunt, and Aunt Ke returned. Only then did she suddenly remember that this was an especially important day for her. Eldest uncle did not follow them back. His leg had only been treated for a month, and Dr. Xiong had instructed him not to move around. He could not sit in the carriage, so he could only regretfully stay in the prefectural city. Lu Shang and Auntie Niu were still in the small courtyard, so they could take care of him. But he prepared a coming-of-age gift for you. Gu Dafeng handed her a wooden sculpture. It was a wooden carving of a screen. It was not complicated, but it was very detailed and beautiful. It could be seen that Uncle had put in a lot of effort when carving it. I love it, thank you. There was still 2 days before her coming-of-age ceremony. In the afternoon, Xiao Qingyuan returned. However, even though he looked normal, Gu Yundong keenly noticed that he looked haggard and was in a bad mood. What was going on? Was there a problem with the cowpox vaccination method? Gu Yundong immediately became nervous. While her parents were not paying attention, she quickly pulled him aside and asked, "Did it not go well?" Xiao Qingyuan heaved a sigh of relief. "No, it went very smoothly. I've already succeeded in one case." Gu Yundong was delighted. "Really? You really succeeded? Isn't that great? Why do you look so pale?" With how much Xiao Qingyuan valued this matter, he should be happy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 905. Surprised Qin Wenzheng. Xiao Qingyuan was indeed happy, but he was also a little angry. Do you know who the successful one is? Gu Yundong frowned and shook her head. Xiao Qingyuan said, Zhou. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. He got infected? Did he agree to it? It's not just that. Xiao Qingyuan sneered. He got cowpox himself. After he recovered, he got smallpox. Gu Yundong was speechless. Although she knew that the cowpox vaccination method was correct, Zhou did not know. No one could guarantee that such an unprecedented experiment would be foolproof. Wasn't he too bold? Xiao Qingyuan also felt that Zhou was bold. He had originally planned to come back a few days earlier. However, now that something like this had happened to Zhou, Xiao Qingyuan couldn't leave. He had to stay and take care of him, lest he really courted death. He only returned after confirming that Zhou had completely recovered. However, after taking care of him day and night for a few days, Xiao Qingyuan's expression finally didn't look good. He told Gu Yundong about Zhou's family. Only then did Gu Yundong understand why he would do this. How should he put it? One was Zhou's trust in Xiao Qingyuan, and the other was to unlock one of his obsessions. Xiao Qingyuan rubbed his temples. Seeing that he was really tired, Gu Yundong hurriedly chased him to rest. Go home and have a good sleep first. My coming-of-age ceremony is still 2 days away. When you're done resting, we'll go to the county city tomorrow and talk to Qin Wenzheng about your important achievement. Xiao Qingyuan was stunned. Tomorrow? We only succeeded once. It's not enough. That's enough. We can report this matter to the emperor first. Besides, the emperor will definitely verify it. They will also arrange for the imperial physicians to repeatedly confirm this method. Xiao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes. She was in such a hurry. Is there any news from Qin Wenzheng? Gu Yundong knew that she could not hide it from him. Yes, when I went to the county yesterday, I heard from Qin Wenzheng that the situation was a little serious. All right, let's go to the county tomorrow. Seeing that he agreed, Gu Yundong hurried him back to rest. The next morning, Gu Yundong and Qiuyue rushed to the county city. The county city was still very lively. The two of them first sent Dan to Dongyi Academy, then brought Yunshu and Yuanji to Qin Wenzheng school. After sending the two of them to the lecture hall, Gu Yundong and Qiuyue went straight to Qin Wenzheng's study. Qin Wenzheng was a little surprised to see the two of them. Why are you here so early? Qiuyue did not speak. Gu Yundong took a step forward, coughed lightly, and looked a little mysterious. We brought you good news. Is there any bad news after the good news? Qin Wenzheng asked with a smile. Gu Yundong shook her head. No. Then I'm relieved. Tell me, what's the good news? This time, he was quite hospitable. He served tea to both of them and sat down at the side. You're used to being mysterious. Don't fool me with gossip. Gu Yundong snorted. When did I fool you with gossip? Do the math yourself. White sugar is great news, right? Last time, about the Tao family, it was also great news, right? Which time didn't I surprise you? Qin Wenzheng thought about it. In that case it was true. He was instantly interested. Then tell me, what surprise did you bring me this time? Could it be that you have a recipe for green sugar or blue sugar again? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 906. The Tao family found third young master Gu Yundong was speechless. Your imagination is too poor and narrow. All right, go ahead. I'll listen. Master Qin, do you know about smallpox? Qin Wenzheng frowned. Hearing this word, he was not in a good mood. I know. Smallpox is a very terrifying and fast-infecting plague. Since ancient times, countless people have died from smallpox. 2 young geniuses from the previous dynasty died because of it. It's a huge pity. Even the royal family can't avoid it. There's no medicine to treat it until now. As Qin Wenzheng spoke, he sighed and was puzzled. Why are you asking this? Could it be that the surprise you mentioned is related to smallpox? He paused and suddenly thought of something. Could it be that you have a way to treat smallpox? Gu Yundong was expressionless. No. Qin Wenzheng was instantly disappointed. Then why are you saying this? Unless you tell me that there's a treatment method, it's not a surprise to me. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Your request just now was not so harsh. I don't have a cure, but I have a way to prevent it. Qin Wenzheng was stunned. Prevention? You mean, the human pox vaccination method? Yundong, this is not novel. Someone has already used this method. I'm not referring to the human pox vaccination method. Of course, I know that this method has been used for a long time, and the failure rate is extremely high. I'm referring to a new method, the kind that is foolproof. Qin Wenzheng was shocked and turned to look at her. Is what you said true? That's a surprise, isn't it? Qin Wenzheng finally sat up straight with a serious expression. Tell me in detail. What makes you so sure that your method will be foolproof? Have you tried it? Gu Yundong looked at Qiuyue. My brother Xiao discovered this method. You should ask him to explain it to you. But let me make it clear first. You have to report this matter to the emperor truthfully, and let him know that my brother Xiao has made a great contribution that's worth a death exemption medallion. He can't be implicated because of the Tao family. Qin Wenzheng. He lowered his head slightly. From an angle that the two of them could not see, a strange expression flashed across his face. However, when he raised his head, he became nonchalant again. Of course. Tell me. I promise to report it truthfully. Gu Yundong took 2 steps back and let Qiuyue speak. Seeing that the two of them might talk for a long time, she simply left the school. I'm going to the street to buy some things. Qin Wenzheng waved his hand, looking like he was burning the bridge after crossing it. Gu Yundong snorted coldly. Anyway, the credit was already set in stone, so she could rest assured. After leaving the school, Gu Yundong walked towards the busy street. However, just as she reached the entrance of the street, Someone suddenly ran over. Yundong, Yundong, it's really you. I was just about to go to Yongfu village to look for you. Gu Yundong looked up and saw that Lu Wei was panting and blushing from running. He rushed to her excitedly. Gu Yundong immediately took 2 steps back and distanced herself from him. Why are you looking for me? I have great news for you. Lu Wei's eyes were shining, and it was obvious that he was gloating. You have news too? Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Tell me. He, let me tell you. The Tao family's eldest young master, Tao Feng, has found his biological brother, the 3rd young master Tao, who was sent out since he was young. Gu Yundong. Who are you talking about? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 907. 3rd young master Tao is someone else. Gu Yundong felt that she must have been hallucinating. She tugged at her ears and asked again. What did you just say? Who found who? Lu Wei said proudly. Tao Feng, the big brother of Tao Xing, who is always jumping up and down and not doing anything serious except deliberately opposing me, suffers the consequences of his own actions. He found the 3rd young master of the Tao family. Oh right, you might not know that the Tao family still has the 3rd young master. He quickly cleared his throat and tried his best to share the gossip with her. Let me tell you, the Tao family originally had 3 sons. Tao Feng was the eldest. He and 3rd brother were born by Master Tao's first wife. Tao Xing was born by the current Mrs. Tao. Mrs. Tao used to be a concubine, but Master Tao doted on his concubine and killed his wife. Soon after the first wife died, the concubine became the new wife. Therefore, all these years, Tao Feng's life at home has been especially difficult. However, his 3rd brother was kidnapped since he was young. Gu Yundong was in a daze. Wasn't the 3rd young master of the Tao family Qiuyue? At this moment, Qiuyue was still explaining the cowpox vaccination method to Wenzheng. Why was Tao Feng looking for him? Kidnapped? Gu Yundong was stunned by the word. She suddenly raised her head and looked at Lu Wei. Did you just say kidnapped? 3rd young master Tao was kidnapped? I think so, but this was said by Tao Feng. I don't know the exact situation. Lu Wei lowered his voice and said mysteriously, but when my father told me about this, he kept it a secret and looked like there was something else going on. I think it's definitely not as simple as kidnapping. Perhaps it's because Tao Xing's mother harmed him. How pitiful. Gu Yundong slowly took a deep breath. When was the 3rd young master of the Tao family found? Yesterday morning, but I only got the news today. Lu Wei was a little regretful. I heard that the Tao family was very lively for a while. Mrs. Tao was determined not to let Tao Yan in. Even Master Tao and old Madam Tao didn't agree. It's also very strange. Tao Yan has been kidnapped for so many years. It wasn't easy to find him. Shouldn't they be crying tears of joy? Why is everyone's reaction so big? It's as if they've seen a ghost. Gu Yundong pursed her lips and suddenly turned around. Lu Wei was stunned and hurriedly followed. Hey, where are you going? I haven't finished speaking. Gu Yundong walked faster and faster until she started to run. Lu Wei chased after her for a while. He was in such a hurry that he stumbled. Just as he was blaming himself for eating too much recently and gaining weight, he looked up and saw that Gu Yundong had disappeared. Why did you run so fast? It wasn't easy for me to gossip with you, but you didn't stay and laugh with me. Are we still friends? Unable to catch up, Lu Wei gave up in the end. However, Gu Yundong quickly returned to Wenzheng school. Before she could enter, she saw Qiuyue walk out. She rushed to him and asked, "Are you guys done?" "We're done." Qiuyue was a man of few words. His explanation was simple and straightforward. As for the specific data, he directly wrote it down in his notebook and handed it to Wenzheng to read it himself. After all, Wenzheng was not a doctor, so he could not ask any professional questions. In any case, it was enough for him to know that the cowpox vaccination method was feasible and had a very high success rate. Therefore, Qiuyue came out to look for Gu Yundong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 908. Old Man Li lied to him again. But why did she look so anxious when he saw her now, as if something big had happened? Yundong gritted her teeth. Wasn't something big going on? She grabbed Xiao Qingyuan's hand and walked in again. She strode towards Qin Wenzheng's study and suddenly pushed open the door. Qin Wenzheng was reading the notebook that Xiao Qingyuan had given him. When he heard the sound of the door breaking in, he was shocked and almost reflexively hid the notebook. Seeing that it was the two of them, he heaved a sigh of relief. You have to knock on the door before entering. Even your brother knows this. Don't you know this kind of etiquette as an elder sister? Yundong did not seem to hear him. She rushed to him in a few strides and asked with narrowed eyes. I heard that Tao Feng found the third young master of the Tao family. The one called Tao Yan is in the Tao family now, right? Xiao Qingyuan's pupils constricted as he looked at Yundong in disbelief. When Qin Wenzheng heard this, his body stiffened, but he tried his best to maintain a normal expression. But who was Yundong? She had already figured out the connection along the way back. These words were not a question at all, but an affirmative tone. Seeing that Qin Wenzheng seemed to be looking for an excuse, Yundong glared at him. Don't try to lie to me. It won't do you any good. Qin Wenzheng sighed faintly and nodded. Tao Feng did find Tao Yan. As he spoke, he glanced at Xiao Qingyuan and said, the real third young master of the Tao family. Xiao Qingyuan's mind went blank for a moment. He frowned. You mean, I'm not a member of the Tao family? Qin Wenzheng nodded. Yes, you must have been deceived by old Li. However, what he said about the third young master of the Tao family being given away as a jinx to be raised and tormented by others is true. Xiao Qingyuan was stunned. It was fake again. That old man lied to him again before he died. However, he had clearly investigated. He had personally asked the two old men who had been in the Tao family for more than 20 years and confirmed that the third young master of the Tao family had been carried away by old man Li. He was now 20 years old, and so was third young master Tao. 2 days after third young master Tao was carried away was the time he appeared in Yongfu village. Master Tao's first wife's surname was Xiao, and when he was young, he had the word Xiao on his clothes. He had seen that swaddling cloth. Moreover, if he was not the third young master of the Tao family, why would old man Li torture him like this? Qin Wenzheng glanced at him and sat down again. No wonder you couldn't find out. Back then, third young master Tao was indeed carried away by old Li. However, he handed the kid over to someone else. As for Xiao Qingyuan's clothes when he was young, it was very likely that old Li had taken them from the real third young master Tao. Xiao Qingyuan lowered his head slightly. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, he suddenly laughed. In that case, I'm not the one that, according to Tao family, would jinx his relatives? Yundong was stunned. Her heart suddenly ached terribly. It turned out that this was still what he cared about the most. Yundong herself did not believe it, but Xiao Qingyuan had grown up in such an environment. Old Li had given him such a huge blow before he died. The saying that he was a jinx had already taken root in his heart and become a dead knot. She immediately reached out to hug him. Qin Wenzheng's eyelids twitched. It didn't conform to the rules. Was it appropriate? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 909. Yundong's Accusation. Yundong suddenly turned to look at him fiercely. Since Brother Xiao is not the third young master of the Tao family, where are his real family members? Qin Wenzheng was stunned. Then he touched his nose and said softly, well, we haven't found out yet. Moreover, it's very difficult to investigate. I'm afraid only old Li, who has been buried, knows. Then what's the use of you? Qin Wenzheng was speechless. Did he agree to investigate Xiao Qingyuan's background? Did she have to vent her anger on others like this? Her temper was too bad. She probably wouldn't be able to get married. Yundong did not look at him and said in a low voice, it's fine, Brother Xiao. Qin Wenzheng is useless and can't find anything. We'll find your family ourselves. We'll definitely find them. Xiao Qingyuan shook his head. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me whether I know my family or not. I have you now. It's enough. He suddenly felt a sense of relief. That sense of relief disappeared because Tao Feng had found the real third young master Tao. He was not a member of the Tao family. It was quite good. Yundong looked up at him and saw that the smile at the corners of his eyes had become much brighter. She immediately smiled too. No matter what, we have nothing to do with the Tao family. Whether the Tao family dies or not, you will be fine. Okay. Qiuyue lowered his head and touched her forehead with the corner of his mouth. Wenzheng, do the two of you think I'm dead? It's fine if you hugged each other, but you even kissed each other? It's immoral. He pointed at them with a trembling finger and said, in public, and before the two of you are married, how can you? Before he could finish speaking, the smile on Yundong's face disappeared. She turned her head and looked at him sinisterly. It's fine if you don't speak. But once you speak, I remember that I haven't settled the score with you. Yundong let go of Qiuyue and sneered. You knew about this long ago, right? You actually kept it a secret. You sinister, cunning, and evil person. Hey, you have to speak with your conscience. How am I a villain? I just found out about this today. You came over early this morning. I wanted to tell you, but I was so shocked by your good news that I forgot. Bullshit. Don't say dirty. You knew more than a month ago. Wenzheng's eyes widened slightly. Damn it, you even guessed this? Yundong smiled insincerely. More than a month ago, you told Brother Xiao that although the Tao family's waters are deep, you can guarantee that Brother Xiao will be safe and sound. How could be so sure that the Emperor will not really implicate Brother Xiao? Now that I think about it, isn't that guaranteed? Brother Xiao is not a member of the Tao family. Whether the Tao family's waters are deep or not, it has nothing to do with Brother Xiao, right? Wenzheng, that's why I said that it's not good to fool someone smart. I was exposed in an instant. A trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. He said awkwardly, I couldn't say too much at that time. I think you're obviously doing this on purpose to cheat us of the cowpox vaccination method, right? You know that Brother Xiao and I are looking for a way out, and you're trying to squeeze out our last value, right? Yundong's accusations became more and more serious. Qiuyue's eyes suddenly turned sharp as he looked at Wenzheng with an unfriendly gaze. Wenzheng's eyes widened. This was a huge crime. What did she mean by squeezing them dry? He was just hoping that the two of them would be able to think of a great contribution. But in her mouth, he had actually become a heinous sinner? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9-10. Then I'll beat you stupid. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't spout nonsense. Wenzheng quickly explained, I was just curious about how capable you are. The facts have proven that you're indeed powerful. Flattery won't help. Give us back the cowpox vaccination method. We won't give it to you anymore. Wenzheng was speechless. Do you think this is children playing house? How can you take it back? Yundong, that's where you're wrong. The cowpox vaccination method is a good thing for the country and the people. Do you know how many people it can save if it's made public? This is a good deed, merit, and a huge matter that saves lives. How can you take it back? Besides, Qiuyue has already told me. I'll remember it in my mind. How can you take it back? When he said the last sentence, he was even a little proud. A genius was indeed a genius. He remembered everything Qiuyue had told him clearly. Yundong gritted her teeth in hatred. It was not that she was unwilling to give Wenzheng this thing. She was angry that Wenzheng had known about it long ago but did not tell them. Did he know how long they had been on tenterhooks? This bastard. You've memorized it, haven't you? Then I'll beat you silly and see how you'll remember it. As Yundong spoke, she grabbed the brush on the desk and threw it at him. Wenzheng hurriedly stood up and took a few steps back. However, Yundong refused to give up. She grabbed the book on the table and threw it at him. Wenzheng cried out in heartache. You can't throw this away. This is the only copy. Hey, this is a purple brush. It's very expensive. That's a painting I've been working on for 2 days. Don't. Qiuyue, stop her. As expected, she wanted to beat him silly and destroy the things that he loved the most. Wouldn't he be so angry that his head hurt and he would go silly? Qiuyue saw that Wenzheng was calling him. He paused for a moment and silently walked to the side. He brought over a canvas bucket filled with many paintings and handed it to Yundong. "There's more here. Smash him." Wenzheng widened his eyes. "Xiao Qingyuan, you're helping the evildoer. You deserve this." Wenzheng was speechless. He wanted to save his paintings, but Yundong smashed them fiercely, so he could not go forward at all. His heart immediately ached. Yundong, calm down. I was wrong. I promise I won't hide it from you again. Don't smash it. It's broken. Wenzheng's voice became sharper and sharper. Finally, it spread far away and was heard by the students who had already finished class and were resting in the lecture hall. Yunshu thought of how his eldest sister had also come to look for the teacher. Worried that something would happen to her, he hurriedly ran over. Seeing this, the others followed behind him. Soon, the sound got closer and closer, but it was very strange. It seemed to be the sound of the headmaster wailing like a ghost. The headmaster usually cared a lot about his image. How could such a situation happen? Yunshu became even more anxious and started shouting from afar, "Big sister, teacher, big sister." Yundong immediately stopped. Then, she flipped her hair and looked like a lady as if nothing had happened. Wenzheng was still panting when Yunshu ran to the door of the study. He looked at the mess on the ground and his watery eyes instantly widened. "Sister, what happened? Did someone break into the house?" The others also arrived one after another. When they saw this, they immediately looked at each other. Wenzheng sneered. He was about to say that the robber was his elder sister, but Yundong had already spoken before him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:11. Yundong's influence. No one is robbing anyone. Yundong sat on the chair with a smile on her face. Her hair was neat and tidy. She waved at Yunshu. The latter immediately went in obediently. Then, he heard his eldest sister point at the paintings on the ground and say, "Your Master Qin suddenly had a cramp in his legs just now." In a moment of desperation, he kicked over the painting bucket and hit the table. These things fell out. Look, they even rolled everywhere. "Yunshu, call your classmates in and help Master pick them up." "Oh, okay." Yunshu quickly nodded and began to call his friends in. Wenzheng heaved a sigh of relief. Unexpectedly, Yundong glanced at him and added with a smile, "By the way, your teacher is especially generous today. He said that these paintings, brushes, and paper were originally prepared for you. You can look at them yourself. If you like them, just pick them and bring them back." Yunshu blinked. Huh. Hadn't the headmaster always treasured these paintings? Was he willing to give them away? Wenzheng's eyes almost popped out. His fingers trembled as he pointed at Yundong. You. Yundong smiled insincerely. "Master Qin, your students are all looking at you eagerly. You won't go back on your word, right? Or were you lying to me again just now?" She emphasized the word lying. Wenzheng looked at the eager gazes of the students outside the door and then at Yundong, who was holding a painting that was about to be torn apart. He knew that he would definitely bleed today. His heart ached even more. He gritted his teeth and nodded. "Yes, that's right. You guys, choose for yourselves." As soon as he finished speaking, the students outside the door walked in one after another and cupped their hands to thank Mr. Qin. After Wenzheng nodded with tears in his eyes, he immediately rushed towards the painting he liked. Wenzheng thought to himself, fortunately, these students were taught by him and knew when to stop. Indeed, everyone had chosen one. Until Yunshu stood up with 3 or 4 paintings. Wenzheng widened his eyes. "Why did you take so many?" Yunshu said, "I want to choose one for my father, one for my elder sister, and one for my mother and younger sister each. I originally wanted to choose one for Nyodan, Zhengjia, and Zhenglu, but I think we can't be too greedy. This is enough. Teacher, you don't have to be polite to me." Wenzheng looked at Yundong in shock and cursed in his heart. Damn it, he had forgotten that a student here was taught by Yundong. It was obvious that Yundong's influence on him was much deeper than his. No, he had to focus on nurturing Yunshu in the future. He had to turn his temper around. However, Wenzheng had forgotten that he was actually a sinister person. If the painting that Yunshu had chosen belonged to someone else, he would have wished for it to be swept away. 15 minutes later. Wenzheng watched as every student left with at least 2 calligraphy paintings or brush and paper. His heart was bleeding. He looked at his empty study and comforted himself. It's fine, it's fine. They're all my students anyway. I'll give them to them sooner or later. I'm not angry. He walked up to Yundong and asked with a dark expression, "Are you done venting your anger now?" "Yes, I'm done. Take the cowpox vaccination method. I won't take it back." Yundong stood up and said, "I'll leave first. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 9:12. This is Yongfu village? Wenzheng snorted. She should have left long ago. He really could not provoke this woman. In the future, he promised to stay far away from her. For the sake of the cowpox vaccination method they had brought, he would let her off for the time being. As he thought about it, Wenzheng quickly took out the handwritten notebook and started reading it. His eyes grew bigger and brighter. After reading it, he couldn't help but take out his brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. He began to write. After writing 3 pages, he carefully wrapped them with the handwritten notebook. Then, he summoned a person and had him send the letter to the capital at full speed. After doing all this, Wenzheng heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't expect Qiuyue to be so talented in medicine. That guy was indeed a talent. However, Qiuyue's background was really strange. Yundong was also thinking about this question as she sat in the carriage. Although she said that it did not matter, Yundong still took it to heart. She had never received the love and care of her family since she was young. She had always grown up alone. The feeling of wanting to have a family to rely on was too deep. Even though she no longer had extravagant hopes when she grew up, ever since she came here, she was still touched and surrendered to such warmth. But Qiuyue had never felt it before. She didn't know what his family was like. Did they want to stay far away like the Tao family, or were they like her father, who had never given up on searching after his wife and children were separated from him? She had never seen it before, but she could not help but think about it. However, Qiuyue did not care about the search for family, and Yundong would not take the initiative to mention it. If the result was bad, wouldn't it hurt him again? So, let nature take its course. But no matter what, the Tao family's matter would no longer involve Qiuyue in the future. Yundong expressed that a huge burden had been lifted from his heart. Even if he was schemed against by Wenzheng once, she could let it go. Right. I forgot to tell Wenzheng that I'm coming of age tomorrow. I should have asked him to bring his wife, daughter, and gifts over. Yundong suddenly thought of this and was instantly vexed. Qiuyue said, "Yunshu and Yuanji will definitely explain why they're taking leave tomorrow." In other words, Wenzheng would definitely know. However, after today's incident, it was unknown if he would bring gifts. Yundong was a little regretful. I should have fallen out with him 2 days later. There was an indescribable regret in her tone. Qiuyue laughed out loud. The lightness in his voice stunned Yundong, and then he laughed as well. The two of them talked as they drove the carriage home. The family was already preparing for her coming-of-age ceremony tomorrow. Yundong looked at her parents, sister, and eldest aunt's busy backs and felt indescribably satisfied. She really hoped that Brother Xiao could have such warmth too. Aunt Ke came over and called her into the room to try her clothes. "Where did you go so early in the morning? Why do you look so relaxed on such an important day?" Yundong followed her in. Xianxia had already come over with a plain dress. "Hurry up and try. If there's anything wrong, it's not too late to change it." The Gu family was in high spirits. No one knew that at this moment, 2 carriages were driving into Yongfu village. From one of the carriages, a person poked her head out and looked at the small village in front of her. Her curious eyes darted around. "This is Yongfu village? That Miss Gu lives here? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 9:13. Inquiring. There were 3 women sitting in the carriage. The young woman who had spoken just now had already poked half her head out of the window. She looked at the village path in front of her excitedly and asked curiously and confusedly, "Why does she live in such a place?" Sitting opposite her was Nie Shuang. She pulled her back to prevent her from falling out of the car window. "Bao Lingyue, you have to be careful. This road is not smooth and it's different from the prefectural city. If you fall out, you might end up with a mouthful of cow dung." It was so disgusting. Bao Lingyue spat twice and turned her head to ask, "Aren't you curious about what kind of village Miss Gu is in?" "I'm curious, but I'm not in a hurry. After Sister Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony, I'll get her to show me around the village. It's better than you looking around aimlessly. What can you tell?" "You're getting better at bragging. Didn't you say that your sister Yundong is very busy every day? How could she have the time to bring you around the village?" Nie Shuang snorted softly and was a little proud. "Who asked me to be Sister Yundong's good friend? You don't understand. She treats her friends with sincerity." Bao Lingyue rolled her eyes inelegantly. Madame Dai, who was sitting in the middle, shook her head and laughed. "All right, stop bickering. We still don't know where Yundong's house is. Let's ask our fellow villagers first." "I'll ask." Bao Lingyue immediately lifted the curtain and her gaze swept across the area outside. Finally, her gaze fell on a simple-looking woman. She waved her hand and called out warmly, "Auntie, can I ask you something?" Jean Yuexiang saw 2 carriages entering the village and was curious to see if they were here to look for the Gu family again. In the end, they did not expect the carriage to not go to the Gu family. They were instantly happy. Hearing her call, she quickly raised her head and said with a smile, "Miss, you're from the city, right? Looking at your aura, you're obviously a young lady from a rich family. This is a true daughter of a wealthy family. You're much better than those pretentious people." Bao Lingyue? She just wanted to ask a question, but she was suddenly flattered. This made her panic. What should she do? Bao Lingyue had always been a friendly person, but in front of Jean Yuexiang, it seemed that she could not get familiar with her. Nie Shuang leaned over and asked with a smile, "Aunt, we want to know how to get to the Gu residence, or Gu Yundong's place." Jean Yuexiang's face darkened when she heard Gu Yundong's name. She snorted and turned to leave. They were actually here to look for Gu Yundong again. They were just lost. What kind of luck did that brat have? Most of the carriages coming and going in the village were here to look for her. Were these rich families blind? Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue looked at each other. What was going on? Did they say something they shouldn't have? However, Jean Yuexiang quickly turned back and tried her best to squeeze out a smile. She pointed at the foot of the mountain and said, "The Gu family is there. It's at the foot of the mountain. It's easy to recognize. You'll know at a glance." With that, she hurried away. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue's brows furrowed even more tightly. The 2 of them sat back in the carriage and said, "This woman looked very unhappy just now, as if Sister Yundong had a grudge against her." Yes. I think so too. Don't tell me she deliberately pointed us the wrong way? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:14. A man and a woman. The more Bao Lingyue thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Look, she was just about to leave when she suddenly changed her mind and pointed out the way without saying a word. It looks like she has some bad intentions. Yes, that makes sense. Nie Shuang nodded. Besides, it's not like Sister Yundong doesn't have money at home. Why would she live at the foot of the mountain? I heard that there are many wild beasts in the 9 Tigers Mountain. If some tigers, bears, and wild boars run out of the mountain, wouldn't the families at the foot of the mountain be the first to suffer? Sister Yundong still has younger siblings. How can she live there? That woman lied to us. She pointed us in the opposite direction. The 2 of them nodded heavily and finally looked at the silent Madame Dai. The latter also felt that. It made sense. Hence, Nie Shuang decided, then let's walk to the middle of the village. We'll ask the other villagers when we meet them. Okay. The 2 of them stuck their heads out and asked the coachman to continue riding towards the center of the village. This Yongfu village is good, but the road is too difficult to walk. Why don't we take the main road? We'll detour out and head for the wider road. We can't. What if we go the wrong way? We won't go the wrong way. Believe me, My intuition is very accurate. Besides, think about it. The Gu family has carriages going back and forth every day. It's not convenient to take the small road. They'll definitely go to the main road. That might not be the case. If the carriage can't pass, you can get down and walk. Madame Deus' head hurt from the two of them arguing. Seeing that they were all leaning over to look out, she said angrily, I think what you said makes sense. Why don't we stop asking for directions and see who can convince who? Let's follow what she says. Nie Shuang was taken aback and her eyes suddenly lit up. That makes sense. Lingyue, let's not ask for directions. Come down and look for it yourself. Let's see who finds Sister Yundong's house first. Idea like that. Madame Dai was speechless. The two of them alighted from the carriage, each with a maidservant behind them. Then, they walked in the direction they had chosen. Madame Dai wanted to take back her words, but when she saw that the two of them had already sped away, she choked on her words and could not say anything. She sat in the carriage and did not move. Afraid that something would happen to the two of them in this unfamiliar place, she hurriedly asked the two servants in the carriage behind to follow. She quickly saw another woman and asked for the direction of the Gu family. When she found out that the Gu family was indeed at the foot of the mountain, she could not help but feel vexed. So that woman had not lied to them. Of course, Jin Yuexiang wanted to lie to them, but her son, Hu Liang, was still lying on the bed half dead. He had been beaten up by the Peng family. The people in these two carriages were obviously rich and noble. If they knew that she had lied to them and broke her legs later, how could she live? However, she did not expect that her earlier actions would actually make people directly deny her words. She was very wronged. Madame Dai laughed. After thinking for a moment, she decided to go to the Gu residence first. When the time came, she would ask Yundong to send 2 people to look for the 2 girls. After all, she was not familiar with this place. She did not want to add to Yundong's trouble. At this moment, Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue were using different methods to reach the same destination. Although they had taken 2 different paths, in the end, they both stopped at the entrance of the same house. However, there was a man and a woman standing at the door of this house. From the looks of it, they seemed to be husband and wife. They were even holding gift boxes. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue looked at each other. This was the Gu family's house, so it was definitely not wrong. The two of them were also here to congratulate Gu Yundong on her coming-of-age ceremony, right? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:15. Someone is talking bad about you behind your back. Nie Shuang wanted to go forward and knock on the door, but this couple came first. Since this couple came first, they were naturally the first. The woman said something to her husband. She took a deep breath and went forward to knock on the door. However, after knocking for a long time, the door did not open. Bao Lingyue found it strange. Didn't the Gu family have servants? Why was the gatekeeper so unreliable? He didn't even guard it. Immediately after, the two of them heard the woman call out, "Uncle, Aunt, it's Yulan. Open the door." Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue were stunned. Uncle? Aunt? Were they Gu Yundong's parents? She had never heard of Gu Yundong having any cousins. Didn't Gu Yundong say that she only had one relative, eldest Aunt Gu? Nie Shuang suddenly realized that she must have found the wrong person. She pulled Bao Lingyue along, wanting to leave, but she did not expect to hear the man's impatient voice. That's enough. They deliberately refused to open the door. Your uncle has already said that he has severed ties with you, so why are you still looking for him? Chen Yulan was furious. Why are you still saying such things? If your mother hadn't gone overboard back then and insisted on slandering Nyodan as a thief, would my uncle have been so cold-hearted and refused to interact with us? Calm, my mother just said it casually. If Gu Yundong had not meddled in other people's business, things would not have turned out like this. Gu Yundong? Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue stopped in their tracks and pricked up their ears to listen. When Chen Yulan saw that there were people around, she quickly came up and pulled Wu Chong. Keep your voice down. Your shop still needs her. As she spoke, she pulled Wu Chong out. It seems that my uncle and aunt are not at home. Forget it. I'll come another day. Wu Chong snorted coldly. I don't think there's a need to come over. Only my mother listens to your nonsense about how good the things in Gus are. So what if they sell well? We don't have the money to buy goods. Your cousin is just a shop assistant in Gus. What can he help with? Look at what he can do. I feel embarrassed to see him ordered around by that hooligan from your village. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue did not hear the rest of the sentence, but they knew that these two people definitely had a feud with Gu Yundong and looked very shameless. The two of them were filled with righteous indignation, but when they thought about how they had found the wrong place, they immediately felt a little depressed. They thought that they should quickly ask the others. It was getting late. At this moment, they heard a laugh from afar. I knew you would walk towards the middle of the village. You must find the village chief's house. In Yongfu village, other than the two houses she and brother Xiao had at the foot of the mountain, the green brick-tiled house of the village chief, Chen Liang, was the most eye-catching. So when Gu Yundong heard Madame Deus' words, she quickly came out to look for them. Coincidentally, Chen Liang's family was at her house today. As her coming-of-age ceremony was tomorrow, Madame Zhou and Madame Song were both helping her at home. When Chen Liang heard that Gu Dejiang was back, he came to talk to him. After Gu Dejiang persuaded him, he changed his attitude towards Niu Dan. As expected, this kid was becoming more and more motivated in his studies. It was said that he had even received praise from the teacher last time. Chen Liang could not wait to share this matter with him. Therefore, when Chen Yulan and her husband knocked on the door of the Chen family's house, it was not that Chen Liang avoided them. When Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue saw her, they quickly walked up to her. Sister Yundong. Lady Gu. Gu Yundong was rather curious as to why Bao Lingyue had come, but before she could ask, Bao Lingyue spoke first. Lady Gu, I have a big piece of news for you. Just now, two people were bad-mouthing you behind your back. This was big news? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:16. You don't understand, Gu Yundong readily agreed. Who's bad-mouthing me? Bao Lingyue gave her a look as if she were sharing huge gossip. The two people who were standing at the door just now were calling uncle and aunt at the door. They said something about you being a busybody and harming them. I didn't hear anything else. They didn't knock on the door and left with the gift box. They seemed to have said that they would come another day. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Was it worth it for you to be so secretive and say that it was big news? That she was meddling in other people's business? However, Chen Yulan was the only person who called Chen Liang uncle at the door. Didn't Chen Liang cut ties with her? Why did she come looking for him? However, it was obvious that with the nature of the Wu family and Chen Yulan, they definitely had something to ask of Chen Liang. This was really interesting. They had caused Niu Dan to be wrongly accused and expelled from school. He had been pointed at as a thief and his reputation had almost been ruined. Now, they still had the cheek to come to his door. Nie Shuang quickly said, Sister Yundong, will they find trouble with you? No, Gu Yundong said. I know who they are. Don't worry, they're just two thick-skinned people. Nie Shuang was relieved when she heard this and did not dwell on this matter. She only asked curiously, Sister Yundong, is this really not your house? Then is your house really at the foot of the mountain? Gu Yundong nodded. Indeed. Why was it built at the foot of the mountain? Didn't they say that it was more dangerous there? Well, the reason is a little complicated. When we first fled to Yongfu village, there was only one foundation we could choose. In addition, it was quiet and the environment was quite good. It's not dangerous. There are very few wild beasts on Nine Tigers Mountain. They won't go down the mountain easily. Even if they went down the mountain, her house was much sturdier and safer than the other houses in the village. Bao Lingyue suddenly turned to look at her in surprise. Yundong, did you flee here? This lady was indeed very friendly. She had changed from Miss Gu to Yundong. Nie Shuang was unhappy when she heard that. Why are you so surprised? Could it be that you looked down on Sister Yundong because she fled here? Of course not. Bao Lingyue quickly shook her head. I'm just shocked. Fleeing to Yongfu village from the famine, wasn't that just last year? It's only been a little more than a year and he already has a workshop and a huge new tea pavilion. Isn't that too amazing? Nie Shuang was very proud. Of course. This is my sister Yundong. Gu Yundong was modest. I was lucky. Come on, praise me again. Don't stand on ceremony. The three of them arrived at the foot of the mountain as they spoke. Looking at the two identical green brick houses, Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyu's mouths were agape. It turned out that the woman had not lied to them. As long as they reached the foot of the mountain, they would be able to recognize Gu Yundong's house at a glance. This house was big and beautiful. It was much better than the previous house. Gu Yundong did not understand their expressions. Although this house is very beautiful, it's not to that extent, right? The Nie family's and Bao family's houses are bigger than both houses. There are carved trees, painted buildings, fake mountains, and lotus ponds. They're much better than this. You don't understand. You don't understand. The two of them shook their heads in unison. The main reason was that this house was in the village and was surrounded by low mud houses. Suddenly, two identical houses stood in front of them. The visual shock was completely different. Moreover, this house looked different from ordinary green brick houses. It looked energetic. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:17. The difficult Madame Zhou energetic? Can the house be described as energetic? Gu Yundong exhaled and led them through the door. The Gu family was very lively. Everyone took Gu Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony very seriously. Not only did Chen Liang's family come to help, but the Shi couple and Lan Huar also came. Dong Xiulan also brought the children. Gu Yundong had not thought of inviting Madame Dai and Nie Shuang. After all, she had almost forgotten that she was about to become an adult. Moreover, the coming-of-age ceremony was held in Yongfu village. Madame Dai and the rest were in the prefectural city. It would take an entire day to get to the county city by carriage. Not only was it a waste of time, but it was also tiring. But who would have thought that they would still come, and even bring along Bao Lingyue, a lady whom they had only met once. Gu Yundong had guessed that Bao Lingyue had a good relationship with Nie Shuang. After all, she could hear the familiarity in her tone when she spoke of Nie Shuang. However, Gu Yundong did not expect their relationship to be so good. According to Nie Shuang, she happened to bump into her when she and Madame Dai were about to set off. When she heard that they were coming to Yongfu village, she got into the carriage without a word and sent someone home to tell them that she was playing with Nie Shuang. It was said that she often went to the Nie family to look for Nie Shuang. The Bao family was already used to her. But of course, Gu Yundong was happy that they could come. She warmly welcomed them. Madame Dai arrived at the Gu house first and only had time to tell Gu Yundong about Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue. Gu Yundong let Aunt Ke lead her into the house to rest while she went out to look for them. Now that the three of them had arrived, Gu Yundong introduced them to others. She did not mention Madame Dai's identity, and only introduced the three of them as seniors and friends from the prefectural city. Nie Shuang immediately hugged her arm and added, "We're especially close friends." Although Chen Liang and the others did not know who they were, they could tell that the three of them were young ladies and madams of wealthy families. Their statuses in the prefecture capital were probably not low. Especially Madame Dai. Chen Liang had seen the county magistrate's wife from afar in the county city before, but this Madame Dai looked even more imposing than the county magistrate's wife. He was a little restrained for a moment, and the others were even more so. Hence, after dinner, Mrs. Zhou secretly came to look for Gu Yundong. She was a little embarrassed to say that she would no longer be the main guest. Gu Yundong was stunned. Women's coming-of-age ceremony was usually attended by the witness, the host, the main guest, the director, the praiser, and so on. The host was her parents. Gu Yundong's first choice for the main guest, who was supposed to be a female senior with virtue, was Aunt Ku, but Aunt Ku rejected her as a widow. Gu Yundong had no choice but to look for Chen Liang's wife. The village chief's wife had the highest status in Yongfu village. Coupled with Gu Yundong's relationship with the Chen family, it was reasonable to invite Madame Zhou as an official guest. Madame Zhou was also very happy at that time, and she patted her chest excitedly and promised that there was no problem. The director was Dong Xiulan. The praiser was Lan Huar. The few of them were already prepared. Why did she suddenly quit? Madame Zhou had no choice. Yundong, I didn't do it on purpose. I just feel that it's more appropriate for you to let Madame Dai replace me. I'm especially nervous now. I just feel that I'll mess it up. At the thought of being the main guest in front of a noblewoman like Madame Dai, She felt that she could not comb Gu Yundong's hair during the ceremony. She felt that she would make a mistake. What if she couldn't even speak and Yundong's hair wasn't combed well? What if she embarrassed Yundong? Would Madame Dai laugh at Yundong? Would she look down on Yundong? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:18. Qin Wenzheng's name is familiar furthermore. Chen Liang even told her, I guess this Madame Dai might be the wife of an official. I was talking to Dajiang just now. When Dajiang saw Madame Dai enter, his expression changed. It was as if he respected her very much. The wife of an official? Madame Zhou felt terrible. She was the village chief's wife and could be considered an official's wife in the village. However, how could an official's wife like her, who wasn't even proper, compare to the official's wife from the prefectural city? Her legs went weak. She would definitely not be able to speak tomorrow. She would definitely lose face. Not only would she lose face for Gu Yundong, but she would also lose face for the village chief, Chen Liang. At the thought of this, Madame Zhou could not calm down at all. The pressure was inexplicably great. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. What should she do? How could she change the main guest just like that? This had been confirmed long ago and everyone knew about it. Combat facing Madame Zhou's pitiful gaze, Gu Yundong was momentarily speechless. Aunt Ke heard the commotion and thought that nothing should happen during the coming-of-age ceremony tomorrow. Otherwise, it would not be good for Gu Yundong. Hence, she agreed. Gu Yundong tried to persuade her a few times. Seeing that Madame Zhou was about to shake off her head, she could only agree. Then, she went to look for Madame Dai. The latter understood the whole story and was so surprised that she could not close her mouth. Well, was she that imposing? Didn't Yundong hide her identity? How could she have known that Chen Liang would make such a guess after seeing her? Unfortunately, he had even told Madame Zhou. However, Madame Dai had been the main guest a few times. She was not unfamiliar with this kind of thing, so there was naturally no problem, and she agreed. However, Madame Dai still felt that she should tell her that she had snatched the original job of Madame Zhou. When Madame Zhou saw that Madame Dai had personally come to apologize, she was immediately flattered. It's not Madame's problem. I'm just too nervous. I'm a countrywoman who has never seen the world, really. Then, she turned around and pinched Chen Liang fiercely. It's all your fault. Tell me what kind of official's wife she is. I'm so nervous. I saw that Madame Dai was approachable and easy to get along with. She even specially came over to comfort me. She doesn't look like an official's wife at all. You're really a jinx. My main guest role is gone. Chen Liang was speechless. What did he do? However, although she said that, Madame Zhou only blamed Chen Liang. If she was really asked to continue being the main guest, she would not agree. Fortunately, other than Madame Zhou, nothing happened to Dong Xiulan and Lan Huaer. Although Nie Shuang really wanted to be the praiser, she was too embarrassed to snatch it since the candidate had already been confirmed. The next day was Gu Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony. Xiao Qingyuan was the happiest among them. His girlfriend was coming of age and was one step closer to their marriage. He looked at the hairpin on the tray and felt even more satisfied. He had chosen this hairpin. Contrary to Xiao Qingyuan, Gu Dajiang was the most reluctant one. His daughter had grown up and was one step away from him. Soon, she might be married. At the thought of this, he couldn't help but glare at Xiao Qingyuan. His girl had been stolen by this pig. He was so angry, but he still had to maintain a smile. After all, as the host, he had to welcome guests. Early in the morning, many people came to the Gu family to watch the ceremony. Most of them were from the village and it was very lively. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue had learned a lot. So this was what the village's coming-of-age ceremony was like? Qin Wenzheng arrived at midnight and stepped into the door with his wife and daughter. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue, who were standing at the door, were stunned when they heard Qin Wenzheng's name. Why did this name sound a little familiar? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:19. Qin Wenzheng was allegedly killed. Qin Wenzheng? Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue looked at each other and rubbed their eyes hard. Qin Wenzheng? Wasn't he the young genius? The one who got the top scholar title at the age of 18? Is it him? That's right, that's right. My big brother really admires him. It's a pity that I heard that he suddenly resigned a few years ago and went missing. But there were also people who said that he was actually... Bao Lingyue lowered her voice. They said that he had actually been harmed. Is it true? It's true. When my elder brother heard the news, he was very sad. I was also very sad. I could not believe the truth. After a long time, I reluctantly accepted it. The heavens are really jealous of geniuses. Bao Lingyue sighed faintly. And think about it, if he had not been harmed, with his talent and learning ability, the current emperor would definitely have let him return to the court. I heard that many court officials who were talented and capable but couldn't accomplish their ambitions have been recalled since the new emperor ascended the throne. They have even been placed in important positions. Nie Shuang also knew this news. When she heard this, she glanced at Qin Wenzheng, who had walked in with his wife and daughter, and said, "In that case, this Qin Wenzheng only has the same name as him?" "I think so, but considering his age and appearance, he seems to be as the rumors say." Nie Shuang rolled her eyes. "Let's go and ask Sister Yundong." The two of them entered the room. Yundong sat in the room and waited. She did not have to do anything today. She just had to take a shower and change her clothes before waiting in the inner room behind the east room. Madame Dai was also in the room. When Nie Shuang and Madame Gu entered, Madame Gu happened to enter with her daughter. Qin Wenzheng greeted them outside the door and went to talk to Qiuyue. Compared to Nie Shuang and the others, Madame Dai knew more. Of course, she knew if Qin Wenzheng was dead or alive. She also knew about his matters in Fengkai County. Previously, Qin Wenzheng had even brought his wife and daughter to the Dai residence to visit her husband, so she knew Madame Gu. However, what she did not know was that Qin Wenzheng actually knew the Gu family and had such a good relationship. Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony was attended by his entire family. No one was left behind. She turned her gaze outside and happened to see Qin Wenzheng talking excitedly with Qiuyue. She was instantly enlightened. Could it be because the two of them were familiar? Coincidentally, Madame Gu was afraid that her daughter would come back dirty again after running out crazily. So she bid Madame Dai and Yundong farewell and hurriedly chased after her. She could not tell how familiar the two of them were. Therefore, after Madame Gu left, Madame Dai asked curiously, "Yundong, is Mr. Qin Wenzheng very familiar with that young Master Xiao?" Thinking about it, she felt that it was possible. Her son had a high evaluation of Qiuyue, who seemed to be a good talent. Therefore, be it Dai Wenhua or Qin Wenzheng, they could become friends with him. For Qiuyue's sake, it was reasonable for Qin Wenzheng to attend Yundong's ceremony. Yundong followed Madame Dai's finger and looked out of the window. Qiuyue and Qin Wenzheng were indeed chatting enthusiastically. They were probably talking about the cowpox vaccination method. Yesterday, Qin Wenzheng must have finished reading Brother Xiao's handwritten notebook and had stacks of questions in his heart. Now that they had met, he naturally couldn't wait to ask. Yundong smiled and nodded. Yes, they're quite familiar with each other. Madame Dai asked again, "Then how did they meet? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 920. No, I reject as far as she knew. Although Qin Wenzheng looked easy to get along with, he actually had a line in his heart. He had always kept a certain distance from others and was not so easy to get along with. Not to mention looking so enthusiastic. Looking at the way he spoke to Qiuyue, she felt that Qiuyue was the cold and distant person. Qin Wenzheng's impression in her mind was somehow changed, making her find it unbelievable. Yundong thought about it. How did they meet? She remembered, Qin Wenzheng seems to like to eat wild animals. Brother Xiao brought Lu Wei into the mountains to hunt 2 roe deers and gave them to him. That's probably it. Lu Wei also came early in the morning, but he liked fun. The moment he arrived, he brought the children out to play. Madame Dai was enlightened. So that was the case. She had heard from her son that Qiuyue often went deep into the mountains and even brought him in to hunt, so it was not strange. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue, who had yet to speak, were shocked when they heard their conversation. "Auntie, Is the Mr. Qin you're talking about the one outside the door? The 18-year-old top scholar? Yes, that's him. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue looked at each other and silently looked at Qin Wenzheng, who was speaking at the door, and sucked in a cold breath. Alive! This was Qin Wenzheng in the flesh. Today, at this moment, at Gu Yundong's house, at Gu Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony, they actually saw the 18-year-old young genius. Excitement, thrill, and an uncontrollable urge to go forward. Bao Lingyue grabbed Nie Shuang's hand tightly and said, "If I tell Big Brother that Qin Wenzheng is still alive, he will definitely be very happy." Oh my god. I actually saw Qin Wenzheng. I grew up listening to his stories. My brother must be especially envious of me. I have to go to him and tell him about it. Me too, me too. I feel like I'm dreaming now. What should I do? I want to go up and talk to him. But isn't this too presumptuous? I don't think so. She has a wife and a daughter. Let's not ruin their relationship. Yes. That was his wife and daughter just now. His wife is also good-looking. They're simply a match made in heaven. And his daughter is too cute. Gu Yundong was speechless. Were women so good at chasing celebrities nowadays? She felt that the two of them were about to faint. Seeing how excited the two of them were, Gu Yundong finally understood why the two of them could become good friends. Indeed, they were like-minded. All right, there was also her father. He seemed to admire Qin Wenzheng very much. That guy is a sinister and cunning fellow. Don't be deceived by his appearance. Gu Yundong complained in her heart. If not for the fact that she had to maintain her makeup that was done at the cost being dragged out of bed early in the morning, she really wanted to rush up and shake the two of them awake. However, very quickly, this fire of excitement consumed her. Nie Shuang grabbed her hand. Sister Yundong, we're good friends, right? That Mr. Qin is your fiancé's good friend, right? Then can you invite him, beg him to write a piece of calligraphy for me? And me. Gu Yundong's expression was cold. Beg him? No, I reject. Seeing that she was unwilling, Madame Dai thought about Qin Wenzheng's personality and was unwilling to make things difficult for her. Hence, she gave the two of them a look. All right. Have you forgotten what day it is today? It's almost time. Don't delay, Yundong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 921. Coming-of-age ceremony. Although Nie Shuang and the others were a little disappointed, they still knew the severity of the matter and quickly shut up. Only then did Madame Dai say in a low voice, "If you really want to meet him, why don't you ask Mrs. Qin? Didn't you see her just now?" Nie Shuang said uncomfortably, "Well, it's not good, right? After all, we're not familiar with Mrs. Qin." Bao Lingyue, who was standing at the side, nodded crazily. Although she was a friendly person, Mrs. Qin was Mr. Qin's wife. She felt that this was too abrupt. What if Mrs. Qin misunderstood them and thought that they had other intentions, and it would backfire? Madame Dai was speechless. Just as she was about to say something, Madame Gu entered. Behind her were Gu Yunke and Qin Anning. The two young girls held hands and had lollipops in their hands. They ran happily to Gu Yundong. "Wow, big sis. You're really good-looking today. You're the best." Gu Yundong pinched her little face. "You guys look good too. Sister Yundong, Aunt Ke said that it's time and asked us to inform you." Madame Dai stood up and said, that's right. It's time to go out. Nie Shuang Lingyue, don't just stand here. The coming-of-age ceremony has begun." Everyone quickly got up and went to their positions. When it was time, Gu Dajiang coughed lightly and said nervously, "Today my daughter Gu Yundong will hold her coming-of-age ceremony. Thank you for coming. Now my daughter, Gu Yundong, will officially begin her coming-of-age ceremony." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a lump in his throat. His daughter had really grown up. He thought back to when she was just born. Because of an accident, she was born prematurely and almost couldn't be saved. He didn't expect her to grow up in the blink of an eye. Gu Dajiang couldn't help but secretly exhale. Soon, Lan Huaer walked forward, washed her hands, and took her place on the west step. Then, Gu Yundong walked out and faced the south. She bowed to the guests and knelt on the witness seat. Then, Madame Dai got up and washed her hands. Dong Xiaolan presented her with a handkerchief and a hairpin. Madame Dai walked to Gu Yundong and recited a congratulatory speech. Then, she combed Gu Yundong's hair and put the hairpin on it. After that, the ritual repeated 3 times. After the entire process, even Gu Yundong felt extremely tired. Aunt Ku was the one who arranged the coming-of-age ceremony. If it was a farmer's family, there would not be so many rules. But Aunt Ku felt that Gu Yundong's future would be limitless and she would soar into the sky. Naturally, her coming-of-age ceremony had to be grand. Be it Gu Dejiang or eldest Aunt Gu, they both agreed with this. For a woman, her coming-of-age ceremony was a very important day. If the conditions allowed, she naturally could not treat it casually. After the ceremony, Gu Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she sent the guests off with Gu Dejiang and Madame Yang. When most of them had left, she returned to her room. After resting for a while, she changed into a simple dress again. Just as she was about to go out, a few familiar voices came from outside. She focused slightly and quickly distinguished the voices. This was Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue talking. However, the two of them only passed by Gu Yundong's room and quickly left. Hearing them mention Qin Wenzheng again, Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Could it be that they were really going to ask Qin Wenzheng for his calligraphy? She couldn't help but laugh. Go for it, fangirls. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 922. Don't do such a demeaning thing. However, while the fangirls were excited and their eyes were filled with desire, they did not dare to go forward and talk to Qin Wenzheng, let alone ask him for calligraphy or paintings. The two of them could only hide in a corner and look in Qin Wenzheng's direction, muttering softly. When Lu Wei came over, he happened to see them putting their heads against each other, looking sneaky. Could these two people be plotting something? Were they trying to do something bad during Gu Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony? Lu Wei recalled the last time he went to the Wang family's banquet with his elder sister. Those women had put on a big show that made him gasp in amazement. He completely understood what it meant to scheme. His sister had told him that these women from the big families fought all day long and liked to make a fuss on such big days. Wasn't today Gu Yundong's big day? These two women said that they were Gu Yundong's friends, but he knew that Gu Yundong had never invited them. They had come uninvited. Lu Wei's expression instantly became serious. He quietly leaned toward them and listened. Then, he heard their nervous and suppressed voices. Master Qin is indeed a talented man. No wonder the late emperor wanted him to be a royal prince. I want to ask him for a piece of calligraphy. Really, I only want one. I have no regrets in this life. I don't dare to go forward. I don't dare either. It's not easy for me to meet him in person. Why can't I take a step forward? Lu Wei understood and immediately came to a realization. He knew that Qin Wenzheng was very popular, especially among women. It was said that when he was the top scholar and rode on a horse to travel the streets, more than half of the women in the capital had thrown flower handkerchiefs and pouches at him. They could even smash Qin Wenzheng until his entire body was covered in bags. Unexpectedly, other than the capital, he even described as divine in cities where he had never been seen, making the women even crazier. The two people in front of him were. You want Qin Wenzheng's collection? Lu Wei's sudden voice caused Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue to be stunned for a moment before they turned their heads around. Nie Shuang naturally knew Lu Wei. The last time Gu Yundong's shop opened for business, Lu Wei drank a large cup of pearl milk tea and left a deep impression on her. Later on, they met twice in the prefecture capital's Jianghu restaurant. Now that she heard this question, she immediately remembered. Previously, Sister Yundong had said that Qin Wenzheng and Xiao Qingyue knew each other. It seemed to be this young Master Lu who pulled the strings. In that case, Lu Wei was also very familiar with Mr. Qin? Nie Shuang quickly said, Can you help us get to? Sure, just you wait. Lu Wei was very generous and agreed immediately. The two of them looked at him gratefully. Lu Wei tidied his hair and immediately walked towards Qin Wenzheng. However, not long after, he returned with a dejected expression. Didn't it work? Nie Shuang asked. Lu Wei nodded and sighed. Brother Qin is not willing. Sigh. Bao Lingyue was very disappointed. Nie Shuang, on the other hand, looked at Lu Wei in surprise. She didn't expect this young master of the Lu family to admit it so straightforwardly. Didn't men usually care about their face? Why didn't he make up for it at this time? Bao Lingyue suddenly thought of something and quickly said, "Isn't young Master Xiao familiar with Lord Qin? You are also familiar with young Master Xiao. Why don't you ask young Master Xiao for help?" Lu Wei looked up and glanced at her. Xiao Qingyuan wouldn't do such a demeaning thing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 923. Sister Yundong, be euphemistic Bao Lingyue. Nie Shuang. Are you scolding us or yourself? But soon, Lu Wei's eyes lit up. Yes, we can look for Gu Yundong. She must have a way. Nie Shuang said, we've thought about it too, but today is Sister Yundong's coming-of-age ceremony. We can't trouble her. She's been busy for the entire day and is resting in her room. How is she resting? Isn't she there? Lu Wei pointed behind them. Nie Shuang turned around and saw Gu Yundong walking over. She seemed to be in good spirits. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue looked at each other and hurried forward. They grabbed Gu Yundong's arms from both sides. Sister Yundong. Gu Yundong shuddered. Speak properly. Calm, Sister Yundong. We want Mr. Qin's calligraphy and paintings. Sister Yundong, go and look for Master Xiao. He will definitely listen to you and help, okay? Gu Yundong was really afraid of them. All right. I'll go. She pulled her hand out forcefully, returned to her room, and came out with a brush, ink, paper and inkstone. Then, she walked towards Qin Wenzheng. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue were stunned and quickly said, Sister Yundong, young Master Xiao is over there. Gu Yundong nodded. I know, but didn't you want Qin Wenzheng's calligraphy? But, Gu Yundong quickened her pace and arrived in front of Qin Wenzheng in a few strides. Master Qin, give me 2 pieces of calligraphy. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue. Aren't you being too direct? Be tactful. What if Mr. Qin gets angry? Qin Wenzheng glanced at the brush and paper in her hand and snorted. Nie Shuang and Qin Shuang no longer held any hope. As expected, Mr. Qin was unhappy. You still have the cheek to ask for my calligraphy? You should calculate how much you gave away yesterday. Your brother alone took 4 of my paintings, not to mention the other students. My entire study's calligraphy and paintings were ruined by you. If I wasn't magnanimous, I would have cut ties with you. Nie Shuang and Bao Lingyue? What did they hear? Gu Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. He was magnanimous? He was clearly the one who schemed against her and did not dare to retaliate. Now, he was talking as if he was very noble. How shameless. It was as if she really cared about his calligraphy. Just as she was thinking, Madame Guest's voice came from the other side. Husband, aren't we leaving? Qin Wenzheng quickly replied. Well, leave immediately. Wait for me for a moment. With that, he took the tray from Gu Yundong's hand and turned to walk to the table at the side. Then, he muttered as he wrote, On account that today is your coming-of-age ceremony, I won't argue with you. Then he wrote down 2 lines of words, all of which were blessings for the good and healthy. After he finished writing, he blew on it and handed it to Gu Yundong. Take it. I'll go back first today. After taking a few steps, he stopped and turned around. By the way, I heard from your father that he plans to take the elementary scholar examination after the new year. I'll help you solve the problem of the elementary scholar endorsement. However, it's not convenient to eat and drink in the examination hall. When you have time, think about how to make something delicious for your father. Gu Yundong nodded. Thank you. Qin Wenzheng left. Gu Yundong turned around with 2 pieces of calligraphy in her hand, and met the dumbfounded expressions of Nie Shuang and the others. You guys, what's wrong? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible.